St. Pete Beach City Commission. Today's Tuesday, June 27th, 2023. It is 6 p.m. And City Clerk, if you wouldn't mind, Pledge of Allegiance. Let's stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, if you'll please do the roll call.
Vice Mayor Grill.
Here.
Commissioner Frislowski.
Here.
Commissioner Grouse. Commissioner Grouse.
Here.
Mayor Petrilla.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have any changes to the agenda, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I got two. The first one is item 4A. I'm going to defer that so we can have more public input on the decision on the streetlights. And the item 5B, just to let the public know that at the last meeting, Commissioner Marron said that he wasn't going to be able to be here for the meeting today, and he requested that the item be deferred to the July 11 meeting. For the benefit of the public, item 5B is the conditional use permit for red, white, and blues. So if you're here for that item, up to discussion of the commission, you can, hear public comments, but not hear the item. If somebody's here, doesn't want to come back. But if not, the item is going to be heard on July 11. And that's all I have. Thank you, sir.
All right.
And just as a technicality, we're going to keep it on the agenda to make a motion to continue.
Because it's already been advertised.
Yeah, right.
That's correct.
Yes. And is there any objections? Is there anyone here who wants to speak on that particular issue?
I have one person signed up.
Okay. What the city attorney mentioned earlier in the conversation was that if you want to make a comment, we could allow them to make the comment, but they would not be able to speak again. So that each person gets a one-time 3 minutes. Or if you want to defer until we have the meeting on July 11th, that's up to you. So if you want to speak today, when the time comes, you'll be able to do that. If not, you can come back on July 11th. Does that sound agreeable?
Yeah,
Great.
fair me.
Any other changes?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have two that I'd like to propose. I'd like to move consent item 3C, which is the fireworks discussion, to an action item. I guess that would be 4E, the action item.
Okay.
And then I'd like to add into item 6, items for discussion, I'd like to add an item on the Corey Landings project.
I would also like to add a discussion item. This could be brief, but the Florida League of Cities is coming up, so maybe that'd be 6B. At least in the past, we've talked about who's going to go and start to make arrangements before can't get hotel rooms and all of that.
Okay. I would like to add a couple of items into discussion. Commissioner Grill, you beat me to Corey Landings. Would like to have a very brief discussion on the Technical Review Committee and the proposal they were reviewing for the Serrata this past week. Wanted to just add some brief comments to a conversation we had this past Tuesday about a new employee starting at the city. Just for the public record to clarify a few things, and then lastly, just a discussion on nuisance enforcement.
I'm sorry, nuisance, did you say?
Yeah, nuisance. noise, parking issues, it's a list of related things I've received from residents in the last couple of weeks.
Do we need a discussion item? And I just thought of this now, so sorry if I didn't bring it up earlier. Earlier today, the city manager sent us 2 different files on expenditures.
Mhm.
I think we had said that we would discuss that at a commission meeting.
Okay.
So now that we have the data, I guess it's hot off the press. I haven't really had time to look at it. I just know we have 2 emails, so.
Let it as item F, city manager expenses. All right. Any other changes to the agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
City clerk, if you will please do a roll call.
Commissioner Frisowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill,
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. All right, the first item that we have is audience comments.
Omar Ciccone, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name's Omar Chico, and I live at 3335 West Maritana Drive, directly across the street from the boat launch at the Don Cesar, commonly known at our house as Kayak Hell. The intention of this information that's being passed regarding the constantly disruptive kayak business occurring nightly at the boat launch at the Don Cesar is, at minimum, to request an earlier time shutdown of these business activities and, at maximum, a complete cancellation of all business activities at this public facility. I have to go quickly. So, bottom of page 1, you'll note that at 10 p.m., the sound level dBA max drops 10 points to 55 dBA. Of the ordinances, I also noticed 46-133, loud and raucous noises, item 5, B5, a loud and raucous noise between the hours of 9 p.m. and 7:30 a.m. on any day. So my point is, maybe there's something to be looking at there. All right, beyond the rules. I ask for your empathy regarding this situation. Imagine 30 to 60 people gathering early in the evening on the street beyond your front yard most nights. Imagine them returning at 10 p.m. every night, all strangers. The workers pile kayaks, picking them up from the water's edge, depositing them close to their trailers, noisily dropping them in a pile. Later, noisily dropping them onto their trailers, one at a time. The noise level is well beyond the allowed dBA level. I think, as most people, we like to go to bed at 10 p.m., perhaps earlier at times, but it is to no avail at my place. At 10:30, plus or minus 15 minutes, the noise of stacking kayaks begins. The loud noise of conversation from workers and customers is a constant source of irritation. Then add the noise of cars pulling out, all after 10 p.m. Check out my first picture. At the tennis courts at Lazarillo Park, 10 p.m. is lights out. Check out picture 2. Boat ramp states 11 p.m. Why the difference? Check out picture 3, a typical crowd on any evening. More on weekend nights, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Business activities, picture 4. They park from 7:30 p.m. until they leave about 11 p.m. right under the no parking sign. The second vehicle with trailer parks in the vehicles with trailer spots, but they never pay for parking. Safety, these workers are untrained. Let us never forget that a customer drowned on their watch. I've seen them loading kayaks in storms so violent, we sit in our houses and comment, that was close. You know what I mean. Yes, yet there they are, stacking as fast as possible in pouring rain, lightning all around, lives endangered. Also means they cut it too close for their customers as well. I've seen them go out in fog so thick, I couldn't see the water across the street. FYI. The reason they cut back to leaving at 11 p.m. is because one night after midnight, I called them out on it and said I'd have the cops there at 10. Mr. Mayor, I believe one of the reasons you were elected involves your stating all decisions should include the concept of how does this benefit our residents. Fellow residents on council, I know none of you would put up with the situation in front of your house. All I ask is, at minimum, ASAP, a change in that sign to 10 p.m. closing, Start ticketing the business that seems to be treating our city with disrespect regarding parking.
Thank you,
Also,
sir.
you could ticket a few customers. Better change the sign to 9 p.m. Best force them to move. And lastly, my wife says, I built...
Thank you,
this home-"
sir. You can stay, you can stay. We may have a few questions for you.
All right.
So I had the opportunity to go on both Friday night and Saturday night, and starting about 9:30, 9:45, and observe the entire ongoings. And it took about an hour and a half. We were there, well, it was past 11:15, I think, on Saturday night. And it was a constant procession of, people coming out, just like the gentleman said, kayaks being banged into the back of trailers. That picture of the truck that's parked illegally, I believe I took that picture. Parked right in front of the no parking sign, on the curb, on the side.
From 8 o'clock right through.
Yeah, so for multiple hours. And so this is one of the things that I wanted to address later on in the discussion as well, but since he's here, if anybody has any questions for...
Homer.
Yes.
I don't think I don't have any questions. Thank you for bringing this up, but this is not the first time we've heard this.
Sure.
We've heard this similar problem from different people standing there with the same problem for quite some time. I can't say exact. I'd say at least a year. I don't know if Ms. Ruznicki is here tonight.
She is.
Yeah, she's come and told us about this problem multiple times. So we need to act. We need to do something and stop talking about it, because I'm sure you're tired of coming up.
Please.
Nothing personal. I'm tired of hearing the same thing, and that we don't address it. Don't misinterpret. It's important. We need to address it. We need to address it, fix it, and move on.
Yeah, we understand the issue. I would just ask, in terms of city manager and city attorney, is it take an ordinance change to affect that sign change? I think
To affect the sign change is an ordering change. To do the enforcement, it's something that we got to coordinate between our parking enforcement people, because we normally shut down parking enforcement earlier. So we're going to have to keep them later at different times until they get the message. And our police department, who can also enforce the area.
Yeah.
But I'll put together an action plan and give you a report at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that this business is taking advantage of the situation, because, I mean, I'm not a fisherman, but it's going to affect people, residents that want to go out and fish and come back a little bit later, but we've got to deal with the issue. I mean, it's gotten out of hand, so.
I beg you. I beg you.
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next comment, please.
Brian Rutherford.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Brian Rutherford. I live at 7000 Beach Plaza at Starlight Towers, directly on the beach. And thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'll try and make it brief. We've had a number of issues. In the last 90 days, our quality of life has deteriorated drastically, and a good majority of it is because of the free Sunrunner. It's bringing individuals, we're getting an increase of violence on the beach, drug activity all the way down into the garden at the north end in front of Envoy Point. We have nighttime individuals that are homeless that are taking up camp on the beach. The police are doing their best. We love our police department, but they're struggling with it. They really have a difficult time with it on a daily basis. They've told us it's going to be free until the end, up until November. If we have 90 more days of free beach ride from downtown St. Pete, we are no longer going to be St. Pete Beach. We're going to be St. Petersburg Beach. And that's a name that I've fought for years. When someone says, oh, you live on St. Petersburg Beach. No, we live on St. Pete Beach. We're going to lose St. Pete Beach very soon if we don't stop this free beach ride. We thought it was a great idea in the beginning, but it's not just where we are, it's all the way up and down. The other issue we're running to on the beach, and a lot of that has to do with the Sunrunner, is individuals coming out one after another. Every 100 feet, they have massive boom boxes. They pick them up at Sam's Club. It's vibrating our buildings. You close the window, the glass vibrates. You can't open the window because of the noise. We have individuals, we're sitting on the beach, a couple that are staying at the Saint Hotel, beautiful boutique hotel. They come over and they say, is it like this every weekend? Yes, unfortunately it is. We have a lady that comes out with her massive boom box. She stands out there, she has a beer in one hand, a joint in the other hand, and it's blasting, and no one else can enjoy the environment. Our tourists can't enjoy it, the locals can't enjoy it. And it's the people here that are suffering from it. The local residents are suffering from it seriously. The boombox noise has to stop during the day. It's so loud, and you walk away from one, you're immediately into the zone of the next one, and then the zone of the next one. It's all the way up the beach line. Where we live, some days there's 45 feet between our home and the water. You know what it's doing to a building on the water? We have engineers in this room, some of you that are sitting here. We have a major building, 2 structures on massive vibration going on all day on the sand next to water. Guess what happens to sand and water? Our buildings are going to end up in the Gulf if we don't stop this boombox. The other issue, of course, is the dogs, and some of that is coming from the Sunrunner as well. They're not the local residents. Majority of them are people will come, they think, oh, let's go for free and walk the dog on the beach. We had an officer come to our residence. I won't say which officer. We love him. He's great. And he says, so what's going on? Can you send me some pictures? 5 days, 46 dog pictures, half of them not on leashes. And the officers are frustrated because they approach these individuals and they go, oh, it's a service dog. If I go out fishing and get pulled over, they ask for a license. If I don't have one, I got 24 hours to produce one. If I drive my car, I might have 24 hours to produce a license.
Thank you, sir.
We need to have that done. Okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sorry. Nope.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Joe Mulholland.
Good evening, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
Owen Joseph Mulholland, 199 21st Avenue. I'm a 16-year resident of St. Pete Beach. This evening I want to speak to permit waivers and enforcement ordinances. I do plan to use a red, white, and booze as an example of that, so if for some reason that's a problem, please tell me, because I don't want to lose my time for the next meeting.
Yeah, maybe I would, just for your purposes, because I know you want to reserve your time for the public hearing and we want to preserve the sanctity of quasi-judicial, maybe just use some other hypothetical rather than an application that's going to be here 2 weeks from now.
Okay, hopefully I won't misstep.
Okay,
I'll
do the best
try
you
to
can.
do that. So I'm trying to understand how a business can receive permission to do certain things at certain levels of intensity that's not within code, and they don't have a permit. And that this particular hypothetical business does it for a couple days a week, and then suddenly they start doing it for 5 days a week and sometimes 6 days a week when it's holidays. And also all of a sudden the hours extend from what you might say was grandfathered of 2 or 3 hours a day for 1 or 2 days a week to the previously mentioned 5 or 6 days a week. And those hours extend from 11 a.m. on Sundays until 9 and 10 p.m. on Sundays. I just don't understand how this level of intensity and frequency got approved, or gets approved, I should say, gets approved without a permit, without any type of process, without any type of consideration for the community. And finally, as it relates directly to this matter, because I am going to transition to another matter, if I don't run out of time, I probably will. Who's making these decisions? Certainly nobody that consults with anybody that lives around where I live. And what's the genesis behind making those decisions? And since I have a couple seconds, I'll follow on. Enforcement. I sat here for the last couple meetings. I used to be passive. I'm less passive now. I'm paying a lot more attention to what's going on. And Mayor, thank you for some of that. I keep hearing that, you know, time constraints and this or that. Well, I used to run a fairly significant business, and I understand employees want their time off, and they want this and they want that, and I get that, and you've got to be respectful, and you've got to treat your employees with respect, but you also need to serve the people that you're serving.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions? I'd love to answer some. Thank you.
Next comment, please.
Deborah Scheckner.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Deborah Scheckner, Bocaciega Isle Drive in St. Pete Beach. I've noticed that the Serrata, they had technical review committee last week, supposedly, but I guess we had a power outage at City Hall. I would have assumed we had a generator that would run all of City Hall, so I guess I'm wrong there. And I believe it's also canceled for the next meeting that's coming up. Now, this is something that somebody told me, that the Serrata does not believe that they even have to go before a technical review committee because they're not asking for a variance or conditional use permit. I'm not aware of that. I don't think anybody has even seen the plans laid out. I think there are some things online, but I would like to know from anybody who's familiar with this, why is that happening? Why do they think they don't have to go to the technical review committee? I think it's really, really important that every development that comes to us, significant development, should have to come before the technical review committee, because that's where the permit, it's brought to you, you say yay or nay, they get a permit or not. If it doesn't get brought to you and they get a permit somewhere else, I don't know who else is available to do that, or I just think it's really important that we take a look at all of these development plans that are coming up. I want to say that I would like the Lido Park, have police drive by every day this weekend a couple of times because he has been parking cars illegally and collecting money for that. I assume that perhaps this week he won't do that because he has been told publicly not to. It is not a permitted parking lot, nor should it ever be a permitted parking lot. And then the last thing is, everybody have a good, happy, safe 4th of July. Enjoy the fireworks.
Thank you, Mr. Scheckner.
Can someone in this room, sitting at the dais, clarify what the process is? Because who said what to whom? I don't know. Right? This is like the game we play as a little kid, sitting in a circle, starting off whispering in everybody's ear and passing the message, and it comes out wrong at the end. I'm not aware of anybody in this room, sitting on the dais, that would say they don't need to, because they're not asking for a variance, they don't come to the TRC. So, City Manager, can you clarify what is the process? And if any developer says, well, I don't think I need to do that, they may not think they need to do that, but what's written in the code says this is what they need to do, and this is what we'll enforce. And people spreading these truths doesn't help anything. So can you set the record straight, please?
Yeah.
We added that as a discussion.
Yeah, I was going
at
to say
the
that
end.
too, yeah.
And it wasn't, I just had questions about, personally, that's why I brought it up, is I just wanted to understand what's the difference between if somebody submits paperwork that says redevelopment at the top, but they do not apply for conditional use permit, where is the cutoff between when does it go to conditional use, when is it just a regular permit? That's what I was trying to understand, which is why one of the things I brought up. I'm not sure if that's what Ms. Scheckner is talking about, because it was going to the TRC. It was on the schedule for the TRC. It got rescheduled, canceled, rescheduled again. So it certainly is going to TRC. But we can just save that for the discussion at the end, if that's all right with you, Commissioner Grill.
whatever you prefer. We can deal
Sure.
it now or,
If that's more productive, we can hold off on it. I know it's going to, when it comes to us, it'll be quasi judicial, so we don't want to upset anything related to that. But there's too many mistruths, and we're quoting somebody here, which now goes on the record, and people are going to take it as, oh, okay, so they're not going to, they're told they don't need the TRC. And this just devolves into very unhealthy discussions.
yeah, staff is here right now, so if you want to.
I'm okay to wait, we'll,
So, Serrata has, in essence, 3 different projects that they are proposing to do. 2 of them are basically the construction of a building on the north side of the facility, building on the south side of the facility. Those are absolutely conditional use approvals, and they go through TRC and absolutely have to do that. They also have in the middle of the complex, the old building that exists today, that they plan to do interior renovation of that building. That does not require a conditional use approval. I do need help from either Brandon or Kristen as to whether it still goes to TRC or not. So if one of you guys can help me with that, because I'm not sure that the middle section, the interior remodeling, requires TRC approval. I know it doesn't require conditional use approval because it's an existing facility, and they're just doing interior remodeling of that. Could you help me with that, Brandon?
Right, just the interior renovation doesn't need TRC review. There is another item that was scheduled for technical review committee last week. It was canceled because of the power outage. It's scheduled for next week. That's a site plan permit. They're rebuilding a restaurant. They're adding on a kitchen and doing some other site work. Nothing that adds units, nothing that adds additional height to the building or anything like that. That does need to be reviewed as a site plan. It will go to technical review committee, but that won't be part of the conditional use permit. It's just a site plan.
They're doing more than just renovating, though.
Correct. They would be. They're building a new restaurant, and they're adding on to the building for a kitchen.
Are they changing density?
No, they're going to be reducing density by 21 units. They're demolishing part of the building.
So they are changing density?
They are, yes.
Yeah, okay. So that's what I was trying to understand personally. That was the question I had when I saw this. It seems that the scope, and this is just from the TRC agenda, it says Serrata Beach redevelopment. It doesn't say Serrata Beach renovation. It doesn't say we're updating, we're making some changes. It says we're redeveloping, and that's the package that they submitted. And so the question that I'm trying to understand is, where's the cutoff between a permit and a conditional use? Because I look at it and saying they're changing density, they're tearing down buildings, they're building new buildings, they're adding to existing buildings. So that is one of the things on there. They're adding a porte-cochere, for example, right? Mm-hmm. So they're substantially changing the structures, including demolishing structures. So just trying to understand where is the cutoff.
So you can build a new building in the site that they have without conditional use approval.
You can build
a new entire new building
without
conditional use approval.
Under what conditions?
As long and help me, Brandon, because he's better at this than I am, is if it's less than 50 feet in height and if it's less than 30 units per acre. Those things can be done as a matter of right. That as a matter of right means that there's no hearing in front of the commission. They got to comply with site plans, they got to comply with building permits, they got to comply with all of that. But yes, they could put a new building there tomorrow.
So what's the current density?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
It's about 40 units an acre.
That's 44 units per acre, yeah. It's over 44 units. So
that density is grandfathered in.
Yeah.
Right.
So is it grandfathered, or is, again, I'm really just trying to understand.
I know. We're all trying to make sure that
are we grandfathered in at 44 units, or are we going by the city code, which says 30 units by right? Anything above that is CUP.
The existing density that they have is grandfathered in. So they can maintain 44 units an acre.
Okay, and if they're changing that number up or down, does that not trigger a call for a conditional use application.
In down, no. You can downsize and not be required to have a conditional use approval.
Still requires a permit.
Yeah.
Requires
There's a
other
permit.
steps, obviously.
Sure.
Right.
I think one of the concerns is, are they trying to break up the project in such a way as to not trigger a conditional use application for it to be necessary at some point?
And nothing that I have heard from them and nothing that I've seen in the plans will exempt them from having conditional use approval applications for the north and the south pieces of what they're trying to do. They might have this clever strategy, but nothing that I have seen will create an exception to that.
The only way they could do that would be to take it under 30 units per acre
And 50 feet.
and 50 feet.
Right.
Mayor, Alex and Brandon and Matthew and I have been having this conversation oddly today, and we're looking at this because I understand that point of view, and I was trying to wrap my head around, is it as simple as height or density? Is it that easy of a decision to say that's what triggers or doesn't trigger a CUP? And so we were actually having this conversation today. So I'd be happy to, get back. We could keep, we were going to actually talk a little bit more about it. We didn't have time to finish our conversation today, but we could get back to you with that information. And of course, the manager's the person that interprets the code. If the attorney's asked to opine on that, I can. But I definitely understand the perception of it because it's definitely presented as a major renovation, a major resort renovation with 3 buildings. So it's that was my first concern about segmenting things and minimizing activities in order to stay under a certain threshold to avoid the review, a more critical review, which a CUP is by nature, because it's a public hearing. But I'd personally like to have a little bit more time to look at this, only because it's, some things are easier than others because like resorts are complicated because they're big and it might have something to do with where they are, like is this in one of the character areas? And then you also have some language in the comprehensive plan. So I was trying to piece together some of the language that I saw in the comprehensive plan as well as the zoning district. It's large resort district, right? And then also you have to look at the CUP process itself. And then there's a part of it, I think, that applies to that district specifically. And so I was trying to work through that in a conversation, and unfortunately, we didn't get that conversation finished today. So I don't know if we could ask for a little time to continue looking at that, if it's possible.
It's fine by me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate taking the time to go through that. All right, any other audience comments, please?
I have a card from William Schwinghammer. It's on Agenda 4A, but that was removed, so I'm going to give him the opportunity to come to talk about it since that was not continued to a date certain.
Did you still want to speak on 4A?
Well, I just want to comment because I heard Alex say that you were going to have public comments or you were going to entertain public comments from Duke's proposal. My name is William Schwinghammer. I'm 440 64th Avenue. I could be of some help. I'm an architectural lighting consultant international. I've had a company since 1987. I have a new office in Miami also. I have an office in New York City. So I've already worked with Mark because they put a pole up in front of my house
and it was lighting the bedrooms and everything else, which I already looked at the city code about 7 years ago, and you're not supposed to put more than 5-foot candles on someone's property, and it was. And then after Mark got me in touch with the right people at Duke, they put a baffle on the fixture, and it stopped it from my complete yard, which was good. But if you're going to spend $300 and some odd thousand on these things, I know that my baffle cost the city money. So my guess is somebody should look at that and say, you're going to need them on all of them, possibly. Although 64th Avenue isn't quite as wide a street as Gulf Winds, it's possible that you'll be lighting people's houses. So if anyone needs any expertise, I have it.
So Bill, just so you know, I had a discussion with the city manager on this item yesterday. It's one of the reasons it's pulled out, because we need more time to discuss it, understand it. The proposal, I think, is rather rich at 150 lights, 150 poles.
Yeah, that's
for
yes.
that period, for that street. We need to look at the aesthetics, but also at the technical side of it. And yes, your name has already been passed from the last time over to Public Works.
I find, because I also procure fixtures when clients need it. That's not my real business. But I already had to buy street lights for a job in Palm Beach that with the city is their city standard. And there's some tricky things that you have to do to buy these things. Now, if this is Duke's standard pole, it'd be nice to know whose it is and what that real spec is, and I could easily tell you what that thing's worth.
Yeah. No, we will
So
reach out to you, don't worry.
$300,000 a lot of it.
Exactly, which is why it's deferred.
Thank you, Bill.
Be in touch.
Next comment, please. Great. All right, next we have item C, the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion for approval.
Second.
City Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Grouse,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill,
Yes.
Commissioner Frizlowski.
Yes.
Mayor Petrella,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, next action items, 4A was removed, and we're on to 4B.
Yes.
Federal FEMA grant for Hurricane Ian.
Yes, this is authorization to enter into a grant agreement to pursue reimbursements for expenses related to Hurricane Ian. We estimate that we have in the neighborhood of $520,000 in expenses incurred as a result of Hurricane Ian. Most of the expenses were related to the vegetative debris removal, and the other ones were related to what's called emergency protective measures. Emergency protective measures include the having the EOC activated and have all the staff, all the firefighters who are at the EOC. It includes securing all of the city facilities. It includes providing sandbags for the residents, and and preparing for the storm. All these things are reimbursable, and by approving this, then we'll basically begin the process of submitting everything to FEMA, and they will basically audit what we submit and provide reimbursement. This is not a fast process, so don't expect a check tomorrow. I mean, I've gone through these processes, and sometimes it takes 2 years, 2.5 years before you see the money. All of the money has been paid out, and everything, well, whatever we receive in the future will be a windfall for 2025.
So there's no normal insurance through PRM for items such as this? We didn't set up it's just normal expense items that the city expended to react to the conditions from the hurricane.
Right.
To help the city recover, prepare, endure, and recover. And FEMA gives us the opportunity to
get reimbursed for that.
get reimbursement for that.
That's correct. Mhm.
Understood.
Any further discussion? we have any,
I would just say thanks for following through with this. This isn't the first time we've done this every time for hurricanes, and God forbid it gets worse. At least this was reasonable, and there's a process you have to go through, and I might just add that the debris removal is a very specific process of which we have to ask for the residents' patience, because that takes, it's not like your regular garbage collection. It's going to come every 2 weeks. So appreciate the patience from the residents, but it does help to get reimbursed.
and also for those who don't know, we already have sandbag stations set up at Egan Park, and those are available daily, self-serve. We've got bags and sand, so if you want to get ready for hurricane season, we already have resources available for that. Do we have any audience comments? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Second?
City Clerk, if you'll please do the roll call.
Vice Mayor Grill,
Yes.
Commissioner Frislavsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse,
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla,
Yes.
motion carries.
Next, we have item 4C, the County Beach Park in a local agreement.
So we got approached by the county, and what they are proposing is to transition the responsibilities for the maintenance of the bathrooms and the building that's on the county beach access park, and in return, they will let us administer and retain the revenues from the chairs and umbrella, concession that they have at the park. Coincidentally, we do have the same vendor that at the county park that we use at Upland Beach and Paso Grill, so that makes it convenient. The vendor is scheduled for contract renegotiations and contract reopening. That's going to be coming later on this summer for you, which if we agree to this, then they will basically include all 3 different facilities. Based on the current agreement that we have with the vendor, there's an estimate of about $50,000 in revenue that will be coming from that. But we do expect that as a result of the beach ordinance, that will basically be probably going to be scaling back how much of a footprint they have and changing the ways that things operate. So to be conservative, we're counting on a significant reduction of revenue from that aspect of the operation. So prospectively, we figure that if we get about $20,000, we can maintain the janitorial component of that with that number. And for the county's perspective is that they, in order to service this facility, they got to come in all the way from Clearwater. And if they're going to send a supervisor, then it's a lot of travel time, dead time. So for them, it really is a maintenance headache to do this. And we're here, we're already at the beach. We can make sure that the bathrooms are really stable and be maintained properly. So we think it's a win-win situation. The agreement has a termination date, a termination for convenience. I believe it's 90 days or so. So if a couple of years later we're not happy with the way this is working out, we can both step back from the current agreement. The vendor has indicated that he is okay with the current terms that are being proposed in here, and for the first few months he'll be paying at the rate of I think it's like $4,800 a month until the new contract goes into place. Other than that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that the commissioners might have.
Just real quick, does this include garbage pickup and basically maintaining of the whole park, or is it just the bathrooms?
It's everything, yeah.
It's everything, so it'll be
Right.
taking care of the entire park area there.
The entire park, right.
So today, the county park it's not that it has been and it will maintain, it's county land.
It is absolutely.
It's owned by the
county,
county.
and that doesn't change.
Right.
Right.
So the parking today, we run the parking, we St. Pete Beach, and we split the revenue 50/50
With the county, correct.
with the
And-
county.
And that doesn't change.
And we've upgraded that with our Park Mobile and electronic parking, et cetera.
Right.
So basically, they're trading off the revenue from the cabana rentals
Right,
to clean the bathrooms,
correct,
is the way I see it.
right.
And I'm assuming, based on the math, this is good for St. Pete Beach, without knowing specifically the numbers. But I think the numbers, because I know that the county's contract with the supplier expired on the 20th, and I'm assuming they have updated it or extended it, because the paperwork says it expired on the 20th,
Yes, they extended until tomorrow.
to tomorrow.
Right.
Assuming-
So if
assuming we
don't
approve tonight.
this Tonight, then they'll extend it again.
Okay.
If not,
Okay.
then it will lapse.
And then we're going to roll this into our overall renegotiation for Upland Beach, Paso Grill Beach, and this
and Mount
one
County Park, correct.
in, I think it's in August when our contract expires.
So, yeah.
Okay. No, the reason I bring it up, and the city manager and I discussed this yesterday, is, and we have a lot more work, obviously, to do on the beach ordinance, but one of the concerns we hear is there are too many cabanas going out at, for example, the county park, forcing people to the north and south onto private property. So we've got to deal with that. One scenario may be reducing the number of chairs that vendor puts out, which then impacts the revenue. So we just need to make sure that the business case stays whole. Roughly at $50K a year, it's pretty good, actually, if you do the math. And I know everyone's going to make fun of me for doing the math, but it's $50K a year. They charge $40 for a cabana a day for a cabana and 2 chairs. That's what the sign says. Do the math, that's $1,250 a year. You know, it's not a big push, right? It's not a big give. So I think we just need to take a look at that.
Well, the
Business is business, and we need to be fair.
The big revenue is the parking, 50% of the parking. That's the big revenue. My only concern with this is, and we worked with the county way back, I can't remember how many years ago, it could have been like 5 years ago, where there were complaints that they did have too many cabanas and chairs, and the county worked with us to reduce it down. And I just want to make sure it doesn't get back to that point, because this amendment doesn't seem to have any language in there in terms of the number there. I'm hoping we can move this beach ordinance along. I think there's been some challenges struggling to get the next meeting scheduled, but I'd like to move that along, because that's going to help, the beach ordinance will help, deal with any of those kinds of issues of too many.
And you're going to be in the driver's seat, the
Yeah.
commission, because you got to, we're going to be bringing you back in August or before that, at restructuring of the contract that might, provide the flexibility to be able to tell them, this is the number of chairs that you can put in, and this is the area that you can put them in, and the footprint. So you're going to be in the driver's seat in order to provide
Well,
it better.
and the big issue was putting them up when there weren't people using them. That was the thing that was also.
Commissioner, you're exactly right. Like, this was, I remember in 2015, this was a big issue. Wayne Saunders and I had a big conversation with the county. They did invite the city manager to be part of that process of selecting the concessionaire. So given that, and this is one of those unique pieces of property and tells you something a little bit about charter counties. So Pinellas County is a charter county, and this is considered a property of county-wide importance. So a lot of people might wonder, like, what does the county have a piece of property in the city for? It's a little bit of an oddity, but because it's a charter county, they do have county-wide powers that they've reserved to themselves. So that became that big issue in 2015. You're remembering exactly right. So this seems to clean up a lot of things. If they're giving us the power to control the whole park, and then also take over the concessionaire part, and then also come August, I guess you're saying that the concessionaire contract is up for renewal. If you want to renew it with this concessionaire, put it out, you'll have it. So it does seem to be a very good solution to what back in 2015 was an incredibly complicated situation to try to penetrate, So, and we are not waiving sovereign immunity or anything like that, so any liability someone gets hurt, trip and fall, slip and trip, whatever, it's still, we're protected under that under that statute.
And how long do we get control of the concessions for in the cabanas?
I don't remember what the termination date of the interlocal. I think the interlocal is...
Matthew, can you come on up for a minute, please? Because Matthew, you actually negotiated most of this contract. So they're actually going to be bifurcated, I think, right? Like, so even though this main interlocal, I'm going to say what I think is right, is like the interlocal agreement is for the city to be able to take over control of the park. And then we also will be able to enhance our concessionaire contract, since we have Upland Beach and Paso Robles Beach, and full, if we wanted to have the same concessionaire for all three areas. Am I close?
Yeah, so yeah, you're close. So I worked with community development. I reviewed the interlocal. Essentially, there is no term. So we're taking the cabana services over. The interlocal says that if we ever wanted to give them back, it would be another conversation with the county to give them back that duty. But the cabana services will be controlled by our current agreement, which is up for renewal in August. And at that point, it'll be a more substantial amendment that comes in front of you, not just a renewal. Because like Commissioner said, we're gonna set some parameters. County right now does a profit share, not a flat monthly. So I mean, there's kind of wiggle room there as well. And the vendor has expressed a willingness to kind of negotiate and accommodate the new beach requirements as well. So there is no term.
So the interlocal goes until it's canceled?
Until somebody says...
Until someone says enough.
I mean, the previous one was executed in 2011, or 2010.
2010, yeah. And the concessionaire for the cabanas and chairs is just a BAU services contract.
I mean, after 5 years, if we decide to renew it, and after 5 years, we could resolicit it, pick a new vendor, and they could have all three locations. We could split it up. I mean, it's really your decision to make.
Right. But is it...
So we're not locked into anything.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks.
Any audience comments? Do we have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do the roll call.
Commissioner Frislowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have item 4D, request for letters of interest and qualifications for the comprehensive planning services.
Yes, so the commission gave us the assignment to prepare a request for letters of interest after the joint meeting that they had between them and the planning board. What you have in front of you is something that I have drafted, and the attorney made comments and edits to that. We submitted that to the planning board, and it went to planning board yesterday. Planning board basically gave their thumbs up in terms of what they saw as the scope of work. They did recommend that the submittal time frame, which one of the things that we had blank, be 30 days from the day that we put it out. They felt that given the 4th of July weekend that was coming up, if you can get this request for letters of interest by then, given the long weekend, it was better to give them 30 days. Given that this process was going to be taking a long time, meaning at least 18 months, a few more days here and there in terms of selecting the right team or teams to do this work will be important. They did also make comments related to the fact that they want to make sure that once a consultant is selected and we work the detailed scope with the consultant, that they wanted to have the ability to meet independently with the consultant and help understand the process and how you went about it, and have individual meetings with planning board members. I don't see any concern. Actually, I think it's a good idea that they do that. Brando, anything else that the planning board might have said that I omitted from my report?
They'd asked for some kind of a 3D model, a visualization of the code standards.
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about was we included here an urban architect because we want to have somebody who can basically has the technology software-wise to provide different models as to what the density of development will look like at different heights and different. So if you change number of units per acre, if you change height, they can basically model that and give you a kind of a real life perspective as to what that level of development is going to look like. It is sometimes very difficult for just lay people to convert number of units per acre into, well, what is that going to look like when somebody puts a building over there? I know architects and planners are already having their minds calibrated as to what that size building will look like, but that's not necessarily commonplace. So as part of the team, we put in, and this could be one team or it could be multiple firms that we later on aggregating into one team. We have planners, we have urban architects, we have economists, we have land use attorneys. So we'll receive proposals from all of them, and there could be one firm that puts together a team of all of the different ones, or just individual people that we might say, these are the best ones on those areas, and we'll aggregate them. We're clearly going to have to select a team leader within the consulting group because all of that coordination between them is probably better that gets done by them. Andrew, you help with this too?
No, I think this is, so this is an outgrowth of the joint workshop that you all had with the the planning board. And the idea was this is such a big animal to get your arms around. It was to get, solicit this letters of interest and qualifications. Specifically, you're really just asking this consultant, or what as Alex said, a lot of consultants will do is they'll call up this expert, and they'll file as a team. And what you're really asking is that first step is an assessment of your comprehensive plan. And I think that sort of expresses here, is expected to guide all, the selected consultant or consultant team will be expected to prepare an assessment of the condition of the city's comprehensive plan. So it was really like a two-step process where they will assess the comprehensive plan thoroughly, and then give you all recommendations as to maybe you should consider changing this or do this, because during that workshop process, it's a big topic, and it's hard to get your arms around. So this is a good way to get a team here with people that have seen and do work on comprehensive plans in other parts of the state all over the place, and can make recommendations for improvements. The only thing else I would say to this is maybe what we should add is someone that has experience with community meetings or community workshops, because I think if you wanted it to have it that way, if you wanted to have where the community actually has some involvement in this, that's kind of a unique skill that some people have and put on. We can add that in here. And then the only thing is just really just kind of a technical thing where the city's comprehensive plan was amended in 2015. It wasn't adopted. It was just, we amended it. We didn't adopt it, and the whole plan was adopted before that. But I think this is a good approach, to getting someone. So basically, their bid would be to come in and say, "Here's our I guess we'll price or our proposal," and they'll take a look at our comprehensive plan and give you all comments on how to go about tackling different issues, you know.
Yeah, I would expect, they'll put together a team. That's the way they're going to do it. And the visualization, anybody can do that these days.
Yeah.
I would say we could put in here the public meetings, but
Yeah.
most all of them are used to doing that. That's sort of a typical part of the process. And this is asking for interest and qualifications. So then we would rank it based on qualifications, then sit down with them and negotiate the specifics of the task and the price.
Right.
Right? So that's just the process. You select based on qualifications, and then you sit down with a top qualified firm, tell them specifically what you want, they follow through with the price. If that price isn't, if we don't feel like they're negotiating fairly, then we can go to number 2.
Exactly.
And that, in that qualification process, basically, we'll review the applications that come in, come to the commission with a recommended consultant or team of consultants. Commission will basically say, yeah, we agree that this looks like the right people, you know, in order of 1, 2, 3, or 4, or you know, and then there will be a second phase in where we'll basically negotiate the prices and all that, and then we'll come back to the commission again. At that point, we'll know the size, or at least the first phase, the first task that we're going to be doing, and then commission, they can later on be approving subsequent work as we progress.
So I assume there'll be, those who've been through this before, they'll come in and propose some sort of logical pieces and chunks, as opposed to trying boiling the ocean in one go.
Yeah, I think even at the planning board, I think you had mentioned a page limitation on the solicitation.
Each consultant is going to give us no more than 15 pages.
Right.
For what they're going to submit to us right now.
So it'd be, here's our approach to what you're asking for. You're asking us experts to tell you how you would go about assessing and then possibly amending your comprehensive plan. And so they would have to do that within a page limit and give you a price. And because this isn't the lowest bidder situation, you have the freedom to pick any or all or none, you know, depending on what kind of response you get.
I think maybe what Commissioner Grill was asking, though, is when we get to that second step, once we have somebody qualified, is it going to be the entire comprehensive plan? Are we going to hone in on certain areas of the comprehensive plan? Is that what you were?
Yeah, I mean, based on...
Yes.
Yeah.
But the city attorney is correct. They're going to give us an approach in the proposal. So they're going to say, yeah, this is how we intend to break up this elephant, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is slightly different than what we discussed at the joint commission planning board, in that what we discussed was to have when we put out the scope, is to say here's why we're doing it, right? Here are the problems that we're facing, and you do kind of reference some of that in the last paragraph, or the second to last paragraph, where it talks about, you know, we're facing challenges, opportunities, and so on. I think as we identified, we left off about half the challenges and concerns and problems that we discussed at that meeting. So I certainly would want to encourage that we include the rest of the challenges that we discussed that are not itemized here: traffic congestion, overcrowding, climate change, urban sprawl, level of service, EMT, fire, police, code enforcement, and so on, emergency response, evacuation route, deficiencies exposed by recent hurricanes on the parts of Florida, and so on. I think it'd be important that we include those things as well, because, I mean, for example, you know, we kind of talked about mobility and pedestrian safety, but that's different from traffic, and that is a huge concern, as we've heard over and over from our residents. The second part of that is the scope of what, one of the things that we talked about at the planning board was to be able to have, to be able to hear from different consultants and have, and different approaches. rather than us telling them, here are the solutions we want, what we talked about was, here's our comprehensive plan. Let's give it a cursory one over, because as has been identified in the past, there may be some inconsistencies and redundancies, some things that just need to be cleaned up, for one. But the second part, as the city attorney mentioned multiple times, is what are the problems that we're trying to fix? What are the problems that we've identified as a commission, as a community, as a city, that we would like to address, that we may need to look at the comprehensive plan and say, does it still serve the community? Does it still serve the needs of our residents? Does it address the problems as we've identified them? And so one of the things that I would propose as a change to this request was not necessarily a request for, but almost more like a true bid. Here is the problem, here is the comprehensive plan, and if we have 3, 4 of them, I'd like to hear from 3, 4, 5 of them what their ideas are as to how they would approach this, as to what issues and challenges they see with the comprehensive plan, so that we do not have just a monotone, here is this development, here's this consultant that we've used for everything else that everybody else is using in the state of Florida, and you're going to get the same plan that, this city got and this city got and this city got, but rather this way would have an opportunity as the commission and as the public to be able to hear from different consultants and say, here's a unique way of approaching it, right? Here's maybe something the big firm hasn't thought about, or maybe here's some resources the big firms have that other firms do not have, and then be able to say, okay, we like everything this one firm says, let's just let them do it. Or to be able to say, okay, they've got some great ideas over here, would you be opposed to working with this individual over here or this firm over here, because they're bringing something completely unique to the table. So those were the thoughts that I had on this.
Can I just make sure I understand what you're saying? So I think what I heard you say is that, so for example, the list of issues that coastal communities are having, we've got a litany of lists here, we need to add to that more, and you reeled off some, and we've got the minutes from the workshop, so add more to that. And then secondarily, part of the scope would be, number one, give, I'm just going to say, like an overall quick audit of the comp plan to make sure, what your thoughts are on it, but then more specifically, does the comprehensive plan address these issues that we're listing as problems?
Or what steps are you recommending? What studies, what specialties, what unique individuals or software, for example, should we consider bringing in as we're doing this review? And that's why I think it'd be important to hear from multiple firms and just to have a wide range of ideas that we can then pick from the ideas. Look, no one's going to understand the need for qualifications, right? But they're going to have qualifications. That's going to be the first thing. It's going to be their resume, their cert, But then I'd like to hear beyond that. You could be as qualified as you want, but you could have terrible ideas, right? But at the same time, I think it'd be important just to be able to hear from many, many different perspectives. And then for us to be able to decide, which direction does, what fits best what we're looking for as a city.
We can try. I just don't know how many consultants are going to give you solutions before having read the comp plan and understanding. Because reading the comp plan is a document that big, right?
200 pages, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know that in search for a contract proposal, they are going to read all of that, rationalize all of that, and give you specifics. I think they can give you examples of things that they have done in the past, but I don't know that they will go beyond that to really give you what you're looking for, I think, on the first pass. I think once we have somebody selected, we can say, okay, you've been selected because you have, great team, give us, and we're going to pay for that, give us some ideas as to how you think that you will be addressing that. Yeah, we can try, but I just don't know how deep they're going to go into spending money for that original proposal.
So I have a suggestion, just because I'm pretty familiar with the whole process. Everybody's busy right now, so it is going to be difficult for them to delve too deep. Probably the question we have to be ready to answer, they're going to ask, how much have you budgeted for this study? Because they're going to want to know, if you've budgeted this much, they're not going to put that much effort into it. They might not even apply. So, and I hear what you're saying. I think the first step should be more qualifications based. I don't mind adding some things that you mentioned, but then once they're at least assured that they make it to the next step, they'll be willing to put in a little bit more time. Maybe not fully what you're asking for, but at least come here, make sure they're familiar with it, look through the comprehensive plan, because typically the second step is an interview process, if that's what we're going to do, a two-step. You submit a book, you shortlist them from a book, you shortlist down to 3 or 4 or 5, whatever, and then they come in. Now they know there is at least a chance that they're going to get it. But they're going to put in some effort, but limited effort, I think, in the first step.
Right. I was thinking in terms of it more like what you're probably used to. If a client comes and says, hey, we want to build a school, and you'd say, okay, good, give us some basic parameters of what you want to build, and here are some examples of stuff that we've done. Maybe do an odd concept, but, you know, at the very least to be able to say, we've given it a cursory look. We see the issues you've identified. Not saying we're giving you the solutions for everything, but just based on this, at the very least I would like to see is just kind of a plan of action. Like, this is, if we were given this contract, here's the steps that we would take, here's the studies that we would like to see. We're not expecting, I mean, they're going to do some work for the bidding process. We don't expect them to do all the work. And I do understand, I hear what you're both saying about as far as how much work are they actually going to do for free. But I think there are a few steps that they can take and to be able to provide some concepts and some ideas, maybe not for everything, but just more generally speaking, and give us a better understanding as, you know, how qualified they are and what kind of their thought process and ideas are.
Yeah. The item number 6, the proposed approach, that's in the industry, that's known as, they would tell you about, this is how I would go about the process. So I think it's exactly what you're asking for.
Yep.
And some, depending on how much they want to go after it, they will spend some effort on that second step once they know they're in the top 3 or so. Because what they might be concerned about is, I don't know that we're going to get 20 firms submit, but they're not going to put that effort thinking, hey, I'm 1 out of 20 or 25, and, you know, I'm even going to make a short list. But we could expect that. And then there'll be other rules come to the second step for the interview.
Right.
So, Commissioner Frzowski, so in excuse me, in bullet 6, you're envisioning that's where they're going to tell us what they would do, because I'd be looking for a firm, or everything we said, and also to say, because we'll give them a list of what we think are the problems, and we ought to recognize we may be wrong or missing something huge that they see and say, oh, time out, guys. Yes, that's important, but let me tell you, while you look at this, you need to do all this.
Right.
And we have an aha moment. And that's where I think we get the benefit. So I don't know if that's in step 1 or step 2, but I think we're selling ourselves short if we don't ask for that and expect that and get that.
What I would expect that the approach would be something to this effect. Our approach would be to review the comprehensive plan, to have public meetings to get input from citizens, businesses, tourists, whatever they're going to say. They could talk about different workshops. They could talk about how they could establish like a website for people that just want to, you know, chime in, have surveys. They would talk about the visualization and how they would put that together to help you visualize what does that mean. You know, what do these different units per acre mean on a given parcel. They typically would, there's all kinds of visualization tools these days. You can do it real quick, like in SketchUp. And they would model a certain area of the city, model all the existing things, show you things that could, you know, change over time. So that's, you know, they could put almost anything in that approach. And then that would give us something to think about. Then during the negotiation part, we say, we like these things at your approach, we want you to do that. And then we could have the feedback but we want you to have, more public meetings, or we want you to do this, or more visualization. So it's a two-way street. They will offer some suggestions, probably in that interview process, but they'll make it clear that you're the important component. We want to hear from you as a client and from the public, and, because you never want to be thinking you know everything, So.
Both sides.
Right. So that's I think this is a good process that we're talking about. I think, we can modify it however, we want, but I think this is a good process. I like the fact that you've limited it to 15 pages, because otherwise some of these people will throw a big book at you. They'll throw you all their boilerplate stuff, and you got to kind of weed through that and see what's really important to us.
Now, Commissioner Frslowski, you brought up a good point. One of the things that they're going to ask is a working budget.
Yeah.
I'll let Andrew throw his number in, but in my estimation is north of 300.
How much?
North of 300, upwards of 300. 300 to 500 is probably the right range. I will start by telling them about north of 300 is about our budget. But I don't know if you feel comfortable around that number, Andrew, or higher.
No, I think to get, I think getting the best and the brightest is important. And as Commissioner Frslowski said, a lot of people are busy, and they're not, you don't want to just get somebody that's just starting out and, wants to make some money. So I would definitely budget a significant amount. I don't think that that's an unheard of amount if you're taking a hard look at your whole comprehensive plan and then looking for, someone to really be involved in your city for a long time. I mean, probably a year easily, to be involved with you guys. So I don't think that's an unrealistic number to think about at all.
Well, that's going to attract some attention. If we go too low, we're not going to get responses, very good responses.
In my experience, you give someone a number, the bid comes in at the number.
Yeah.
So we can budget it, and I know it's going to be public and everyone will hear it, but you start giving someone a number, they always back into the number. How much you want to spend on your house? They come in at the number. Just saying.
Yeah, but you got to tell them a number, otherwise people are not going to apply. And remember, this is a negotiation. They don't, this is not like a low bid. So you select them based on qualifications. You sit down with them. If you feel like they're not being fair with you with the pricing, you tell them we're prepared to move on to number 2. And they will have spent a lot of time and effort already. So there's I hear you. I understand what you're saying, but we're going to get what we are willing to spend too.
No, to the city attorney's point, we need to do this right and get the best.
Because I do this enough, and people don't put a budget, and some city says, well, we have $20,000. They're going to be like, that's unrealistic. I'm not even going to apply.
I do want to make sure that I'm clear in this one issue, is that I think it'd be important for us to hear from more than one person, or that we get an opportunity to, if we have 5 applicants, let's get an opportunity to review all of them, interview all of them before we make a decision and say, okay, go ahead and start bidding applicant number 2. If we get 20, I'm sure you and your staff will be perfectly capable of maybe narrowing down to the top 5 that we should take a look at. But
Okay.
in the event
the commission
that-
wants to see top 5, more or less.
That's my opinion. My opinion is I think the more people we can hear from and to interview them and to be able to just ask them some questions, we're not going to spend money on that, right? They're going to spend money coming here maybe, but I think it'd be important for us to be able to interview them and determine qualifications more than just what's on paper. Because I think you get a lot of information from somebody, talking to them face to face, asking them questions, seeing how they respond, seeing what ideas they come up with.
agree.
I think that'd be important also for the public to see the process.
It's going to be interesting to see who applies, how many apply.
Yeah.
I think by state law, we have to, does this fall under CCNA, this process?
I don't believe so.
Okay, because if it was CCNA, then we'd have to interview at least 3. And you typically want to interview at least 3, because one drops out, now you're down to 2.
Absolutely.
And I've seen it typically 3 to 5, sometimes 6.
Yeah, that'd be
Hopefully
great.
we get more than 6 applying.
Yep.
It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I really don't know. That number that we're talking about, though, I think is significant enough to attract some good qualified people. So, and I know we're all kind of careful about how we spend money, but this is a big issue. I mean, this is, we need to do this right, so.
Absolutely.
So at the joint meeting, I took notes of the issues that we discussed. As the city manager asked, what problems are we trying to solve? If you want, I can email you both a list of that
Yeah,
copy,
no,
and then,
we'll include it. Thank you.
yep.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Good.
Do we have any public? Go ahead.
So what's the next step now? I think,
So we'll get the additional issues from the mayor. We'll try to put some language in the approach to give us sample solutions of things that they have done before. We'll include that as well. And then we'll put it out. And probably we can do that by today's Tuesday. If we get that Friday or early next week, we can put it out and advertise it.
And then
With
have
a 30-day notice.
30-day,
submittals, right.
and then 30 days for response.
Right.
Okay. Because then I think at the same time, we have to put together a strategy or a plan on what do we do when these things start coming in? Who's the team? Who's going to review it? What's the what are the things that we're going to use for evaluation? Because it's a complicated one. It's not evaluating, when we buy flat screen TVs or something like that. Right? So we've got to work on that. What's going to be so we can work simultaneously and hit the ground running and be ready to go and get this and keep this thing moving. Because hopefully we'll get 6 books. Okay, then what's the team? What's the process?
16 pamphlets, 15 pages.
Yeah, right. Like these. But good quality stuff. Anyway, so we can move it. And we'll need the planning board, obviously, have.
Yes, and they made it very clear they want to be very involved in this as well. So, and
Okay.
they should, because they're your local planning agencies.
Okay.
Do we have any audience comments? No.
Say I don't have a card on that.
Okay.
ABC, 5A, 5B, and 5C. We're on 4. Okay. Well, I'd like to speak.
3 minutes.
Deborah Schechner, Bocosiega, I'll drive. A couple of things here. I mean, if a company is bidding, sometimes that's the cost of business. And they probably should read most of our comprehensive plan, because they want to be educated before they come before you. And it is a significant contract. So the planning board was very specific about what they wanted. I believe you all agreed with that, and it's very important for us to get this done right. My other comment that's real quick is that let's not use the companies that already are used by the developers, because, in my opinion, there will be a conflict of interest. And I think we've seen that before, and I don't want, one side telling the other side something, and I just really think this has to be a very clean contract. And, there are some names that the city's used for so many years, and I would suggest that might not be the best prospect for us to use. And it's a cost of doing business to put out bids. And sometimes they are complicated. And sometimes, certainly with architecture and other things, they could be 100 pages long. And then you still have to go back and elicit from who might hire you some information that maybe you don't understand or expand upon. So it is a cost of doing business. I don't think we'd have a problem, especially at that price. I would also do something about change orders and have that in the contract because they can get very costly. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. I will say in response to that, you know, when we look at the TRC schedule and we're looking at, you know, the plans that were submitted, and, you know, at the very top, you know, the designer is one of our large, you know, consulting firms. I do, we've had this conversation about this. I do take exception. I do find it challenging that the same firm that is working on our comprehensive cleanup review right now is also working for at least one, if not multiple developers on an issue related to the comprehensive plan, where we had a question, is there potentially a path here for circumventing the comprehensive plan? I think that just brings it right to the forefront. That's one of the issues here. And so that's one of the reasons that I wanted to interview them, because if they come back, you know, whoever the consultants are, those are questions that they're going to have to be able to answer, you know, because to me, there's potential major conflicts here.
That can certainly be a criteria that you use in part of your evaluation, you know, in terms of, you know, what work are you doing that may have the appearance of a conflict.
Right.
You know, it certainly could be one of your criteria.
As opposed to just excluding people from the get-go.
You could do that too. I mean, we can, yeah. I mean, I certainly would personally, but I don't think I should be on the committee. I mean, to review this, because I'm the attorney and I'm going to have to, if something goes wrong, I'm going to have to be dealing with it. So I shouldn't be involved as a, you know, if there was a bid protest or something like that, then I shouldn't be the person that sits on that group. But Alex can put together a group that's, you know, talented enough to sieve through. Let's hope that we get 15 applicants, you know, that have like a wide range of talent, and they're the best and the brightest, and, you know, you're able to, you know, figure out, you know, hey, these guys, I haven't seen them, they don't work in the city, you know.
Right.
So if that's the instruction to the administration, that we want to avoid any appearance of a conflict, that could be easily, you know, done.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I mean, generically, that should be with everything.
Yeah, right. And I was going to say the better ones, you know, it's so easy to stream these things and go back. And so someone looking at it could hear exactly what.
Yeah, they're going to watch this.
Yeah.
They'll watch this. They'll watch the joint meeting. They'll watch all of them.
Yeah.
Of course. If they don't, they shouldn't be on the list.
All right, do we have a motion for 4D?
I will make a motion to approve the request for letters of interest and qualifications for comprehensive planning services.
Second?
City Clerk, if you will please do the roll call.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Brzezowski?
Yes.
Mayor Petrella?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next we have item 4E, the 4th of July fireworks display.
So the reason I pulled it out?
Yes, please.
Sorry. So the reason I pulled it out from the consent, if the other commission remembers, we had a review of this 2 meetings ago, I believe, 2 or 3 meetings ago. Sorry? May 23rd, thank you, Assistant City Attorney. Where we approved the budget, we approved to go ahead with the purchase. As we know, the fireworks are the 2nd, which is Saturday night?
Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday night.
Right.
So time is of the essence. And then it's back in for review because there's a problem. There was confusion, a mix-up with vendors and different vendors with similar names. So we're back for a reapproval to straighten out the vendor name. None of the contracts I've been told none of the contracts have been executed, none of the payments have been made. I don't see in the packet now a scope of work. I was reading this just before the meeting, so we need to talk about the scope of work, what we're getting. The price is the same price as what was in the previous approval from a few meetings ago. And then I think we also have to take, and I'm going to defer to the city clerk and/or the city attorney to tell us what we need to do to clear up the motion from the previous meeting that didn't get executed, because I believe we need to do something to clean that up. I'm just not sure what, so that we don't have two motions on the table.
Yeah. On that
That's why I pulled
topic,
it out.
I would just say, yeah, I concur that I think you need to, just for clarity and for the record, down the road, that it, take a vote to rescind or to void your action from the last meeting, because so that there's nothing out there.
So we do that separate or as part of
I
the
would do
motion?
it separately.
Okay.
So do we need to do that first before we can vote on a new one?
I would, so you don't have two fireworks contracts approved at the same time. Could be explosive.
He's got jokes today.
We just cut the ribbon last week at that club downtown.
It's open mic night on Tuesdays right after this. You can just
Yeah, that's right.
you can just walk right down there.
And it's only $5.
You have to pay to go up?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Anyway,
I just.
okay. So we need a motion to,
What are we looking for? What are we, motion to
void,
rescind?
rescind, void the prior fireworks contract. I think that.
Yeah, I would word it as motion to rescind or void the motion made at the May 23rd, 2023 City Commission meeting. That's more specific.
Yep.
so moved.
Second?
City clerk, if we can please have a roll call.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Brzezinski?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Mayor Petrola?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Do we have any audience comments before we move on to voting on the,
I don't have any cards.
okay.
I would ask if the city manager can give us just an update so that we're all on the same page, because I'll be honest, it was a little confusing reading it in the packet. Could you give us an update? So what happened? Make sure that I gave the right.
You did, yeah. The two company names, one is called Pyro Productions, the other one is called Pyrotechnical. And the similarity names basically led to the confusion that the piggyback contract that we have brought up to the commission was not the company that we've been in communications with and scheduled the July 2nd fireworks with, which is the same company that has done this for us for a while. So shortly after the approval was obtained, we realized that we had basically obtained approval for the wrong company, and then we started looking for a piggyback with the right company. Zero Clearwater just approved last week the contract with Pyrotechnical, and we're piggybacking on that contract. But everything had been scheduled with Pyrotechnical, so they are on schedule for Sunday to do the fireworks.
So it's the same price and the same scope of work
Same price and same scope, yes.
that we approved previously.
Thank you, sir.
And the same company that's been doing it for a number of years now.
Yes.
Right. The only thing I would ask is, and just so for the other commissioners, city manager and I had a discussion, discussed this yesterday, and maybe it's time that we sign our own contract, because we seem to get into these urgent situations and multiple times for fireworks, because we're piggybacking. Maybe we sign our own contract going forward or something, so that quite frankly, we simplify our life and we don't have to run around in an urgent situation, because it's Tuesday night and fireworks are on Sunday.
And this is one of the things that we can probably sign a 5-year contract with a vendor and just have them scheduled for the next 5 years. We're not talking big money anyway. I mean, we're talking about $35,000 a year, 5 years, $165,000, $175,000, and then we're done. Yeah, you're right. So that's I think is a better long-term approach.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
We do need a motion to.
No further discussion? We'll take a motion, please.
I will make a motion to approve the contract with Pyrotechnico Fireworks Incorporated.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Frislowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill,
Yes.
Mayor Petrola,
Yes.
motion carried.
Next, we have item 5A, resolution for offshore drilling.
I need to read the title of the resolutions.
Please.
Resolution 2023-09, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, opposing offshore oil drilling activities and expansion of offshore drilling in the Gulf of Mexico and providing for an effective date.
So this was the item that, just to level set and make sure the public's with us, that it's probably almost a month ago now, I think we all got individual emails from an organization asking us to oppose and sign a letter individually to oppose offshore drilling in the Gulf. They also requested that we do a citywide commission resolution, which is what the city clerk just read. I think individually we were, as we discussed last time, we were comfortable to proceed. And from the last meeting, the city attorney pulled out our old resolution and modified it or made sure that it was still current. And that's what we'll be signing tonight as a city organization. So that's just where we are, and we all know that we did get one email from a resident with some history and from the oil spill, which those of you that lived here and lived through it, it was shocking to see those pictures, and obviously nobody wants to go through that again. So.
Mm-hmm.
Important to do, important for the environment, important for the city, important for our beaches, and for everybody. So I propose we move forward.
Any discussion? Do we have a second? If you have one comment, please.
Deborah Schechner.
Deborah Schechner, Bocasaga Isle Drive in St. Pete Beach, Florida. I would add to that the restaurants and some other employers were not able to hold on to employees because there was no business through that oil spill. That lasted a short time. A little history. The first time I can remember, of course, these were the Nicholases who owned the Serrata and other people. We had a hands across the beach, and hoteliers joined residents, and I think we came all the way from Upland Beach all the way down to the tip of Paso Grill in protest of having offshore drilling. So this is not the first time we've been asked to do this. And I think it's important to note that's probably the only time residents and hoteliers came together. And they had good reason for it, because it not only affects the businesses, the hotels, the tourists. Nobody wants to come here when the oil spills hit and wildlife gets hurt, and we have turtles and birds and people to protect. So I am glad you're doing this, but I thought it would be nice to know how many residents and hoteliers from one end of the city to the other did a hands across the beach. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I don't think was there a motion?
Yeah. There's-
Did anybody make a motion?
I think Commissioner Gill made a motion. You
Well,
said so moved.
I said we should move forward on it, but I can read the,
City clerk already read the resolution, so
Yep.
I just didn't understand yours to actually be a motion, but.
so I make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-07.
Second.
City Clerk, roll call, please.
It's 2023-09.
2023-09.
But
I stand corrected, and I make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-09. See, I even put my glasses on and messed it up.
Second, all
My
right.
apologies.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Grauss,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill,
Yes,
Commissioner Brzezowski.
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla,
Yes.
motion carries.
I apologize. You're right.
Next, we have 5B, Resolution 2023-08, conditional use permit for Red, White, and Booze Restaurant Outdoor Music Area.
Okay, I'm going to read the title. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, approving a conditional use permit pursuant to Section 15.4 of the Land Development Code for the establishment of an area for the playing of amplified music at 2007 Paso Grill Way.
I will make a motion to continue Resolution 2023-08 to July 11th, 2023 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter as same can be heard in these chambers.
Second.
Do we have any discussion or audience comments?
I did have one person, Deborah Schechner. Defer it? Okay.
Thank you. City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Vice Mayor Grill,
Yes.
Commissioner Brzezowski.
Yes.
Commissioner Grauss,
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla,
Yes.
motion carries.
Next, we have 5C, Resolution 2023-07, conditional use permit for Fisherman's Park Pier.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, approving a conditional use permit pursuant to Section 16.4 of the Land Development Code for the construction of a municipal Class C pier at Fisherman's Park.
Good evening, Brandon, planner with the city. So this is case number 23035. That's the conditional use permit number for Fisherman's Park Pier. The City of St. Pete Beach is both applicant owner. The address is...
Excuse me, Brandon.
Yes.
Would you mind raising the mic up?
Sure, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Great. The property address is Corey Avenue, west of Sunset Way, known as Fisherman's Park. The city is requesting a conditional use permit pursuant to Land Development Code Section 16.4G to allow for the construction of a municipal Class C pier at the Corey Avenue street end, west of Sunset Way, again known as Fisherman's Park. Here's a quick application timeline. The submittal was made and deemed complete in early May. There was a technical review committee review for this on May 16th. On June 12th, staff mailed notice to the 232 properties within 500 feet of the subject street end. We did receive 2 letters. The first was a letter of opposition from the Land's End at Sunset Beach Community Association manager. That was included in your packets. We did over the weekend receive a second letter that was more neutral that was emailed out to you earlier today. On the 14th of June, Legal Ad was posted in the Tampa Bay Times. Last week, staff posted a sign at the site, and of course tonight is the hearing. Here's a quick listing of exhibits. Here's an aerial map of the street end. It is the west end of Corey Avenue, known as Fisherman's Park. So street ends do have zoning in St. Pete Beach. There are specific street ends that have an actual park zoning. This is not one of them, despite being a park. When a street end does not have its own specific zoning assigned, it adopts the street ends of the abutting parcels, which in this case is the CG2 commercial district. In the CG2 district, commercial Class A, B, and C docks are permitted as a conditional use. This includes any pier as a dock as defined in the code, which is constructed on piles over open water. And a Class C dock is specifically any dock that is constructed and maintained by the local municipality. This will be constructed and remain a public dock or a pier in this case. Here is a survey of the street end. Here is a sketch of the request. This, when it was originally drawn up as a schematic, did include a phase 2 that might have been proposed that extended north from the pier itself. This would have been wet slips associated with the, it would have been a joint public-private partnership. That is not in the scope of tonight's request. If that were to be moved forward at any point, that would require a subsequent conditional use. The request is only for the 60-foot long fishing pier that is shown highlighted in green. That is at the Fisherman's Park seawall and within its riparian, extended riparian rights. The square footage of the pier is proposed to be 2,163 square feet. It abuts a waterway that is 268 feet in width. It has a north riparian setback of 1.9 feet at the closest point and a south riparian setback of 21 feet at its closest point. This is an approximate projection. It's not going to be spot on. It was done through Google Maps, but just showing the width of the channel at the location of Fisherman's Park, 268 feet in width. Both our code as well as the Florida Department of Environmental Protection's code for the Boca Ciega Preserve allow for projections not to exceed 25% of the waterway width. The 60-foot projection puts it at 208 feet to the opposite shore. That is a projection of 22.5 feet, or 22.5% of the waterway width, so it is below that standard.
Can I ask a question to clarify
Yes.
a point? Is it 25% of the waterway width or 25% of the navigable water?
It is the waterway width in the code, and then I have the state.
I thought it was, because I thought it was navigable water.
Well, that would be a moving target because that changes all the time.
Exactly.
Yep.
Especially at that spot where we have sand shifting all the time. But anyway, if you don't...
I'll check that definition.
Okay.
There has been locals plan support for generally and specifically for a facility at the west end of Corey Avenue. Back in 2003, the master plan for the resort commercial districts recommended a sunset park in the west end of Corey Avenue. Of course, the city has the proper noun, Sunset Park, just south of here at 73rd, but this was a recommendation for a sunset-oriented park on the west end of Corey. In the comprehensive plan, there are numerous policies that support water-based recreational facilities. I just picked one of them out of the staff report. Parks and recreational lands will be planned for multiple uses and located in areas most suitable to satisfy the needs of the permanent and seasonal populations, visitors, and tourists. And then the city came up with its 2015 vision for the Corey Avenue district, and that envisioned an actual public fishing pier in the west end of Corey Avenue. There was a rendering. You can see that in the bottom right. This is being reviewed concurrently by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. It requires an individual rather than a general permit due to the Florida Administrative Code. There are two criteria that it falls under that elevates it up to the individual permit, which is a more involved process than a general permit, in which there is some self-certification under general. The size of the facility exceeds 2,000 square feet at 2,163 square feet. And there's also a proposal for a fish cleaning facility, specifically a table on the pier. That is something that excludes it from being a general permit. The proposal further requires the following. This is not part of the permit requirements, but it's just a general requirement for the applicant, the city, to achieve. A concurrence letter from both abutting property owners due to the side riparian setbacks being less than 25 feet. Again, that's 1.9 feet on the north, 21 feet on the south. The city has something very similar locally for sign-offs. It's also something that's handled at the state level. There is a requirement for a submerged land lease rather than a consent level due to the shoreline ratio exceeding 10:1. That's the square footage of the dock relative to the width of the shoreline. Of course, at 2,100 square feet, it's much larger than 810, which would meet that ratio. There's a requirement for installation of navigational aids. The letter had specifically called out reflectors. Staff are recommending recessed lights, and an explanation on behalf of the contractor of the best management practices that will be employed to preserve water quality during the construction of the pier. Here's some photographs of the site looking out toward the Treasure Island. The left part of the slide is looking to the north, and the right part of the slide looking to the south. There are 7 standards for review of any conditional use permit and 4 considerations. Staff find that the use is overall consistent with the comprehensive plan's goals of recreation and open space maintenance, including maintaining parks that meet the needs of current and future residents, visitors, and tourists, including emphasizing those in scenic areas. There will be appearance impacts to the area, but ones that complement existing facilities in Fisherman's Park, and it does preserve the overall scenic resources of the park. It is larger than the nearest dock facilities to the north, but does comply with the 25% of the waterway with encroachment standards set locally and by the state. Operational characteristics of the park will not change. It will still close at sunset, and there are no places proposed to moor a vessel or any additional parking spaces proposed in the park. In fact, as part of the state application, it is specifically not permitted to moor. Staff are recommending conditions related to lighting and providing a light ring to offset safety concerns. The project has, of course, been financed through the fiscal year 2023 budget, and being a public park facility, it will need to comply with the park ordinance as it relates to operations. Staff further found that the pier will enhance the city's recreational advantages, would not impact negatively natural resources due to review under the state's individual permitting program, and would not impact the uplands or have a material adverse effect on the public. Staff finds that the applicant has met the burden of approval for conditional use permit number 23035. Regarding concurrency, staff finds this request does not increase density or intensity of the development at the street end, is therefore exempt pursuant to the Land Development Code. The facility is one of the facilities that the city tracks under its recreational level of service standards through the comprehensive plan. It will provide an additional public fishing site, and that will improve the level of service for recreation for residents. Staff recommend approval of Resolution 2023-07 with the following 3 conditions: that pier lighting installed to illuminate the decking for navigational purposes be recessed and not have any exposed source of illumination visible outside of the street and riparian lines; that a life ring or other appropriate flotation device be installed within the pier or park area, and at least 5 bike storage spaces shall be installed within or adjacent to the park during either this phase or later adjacent streetscape improvement phases. Staff recommend approval of Resolution 2023-07. We have the city manager here as applicant if you have any questions.
One second. Mayor, before we get started, before we dive in, and even though the city is the applicant, this is still quasi-judicial, so if you all wouldn't mind just doing ex parte disclosures that you may have had regarding this application.
I've had none.
I've had none.
I've had discussions with the residents about this.
Okay.
And the city manager, of course.
Okay.
Just the city manager.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I did talk with the city manager. I have a recommendation for another condition to add.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes, and this is one of those unusual circumstances that we, the city, are our own applicant on a conditional use permit. A couple of things that I want to add. The project, when we originally started thinking of the project, we were approached by the restaurants who are to the north side of Corey Avenue, and they were interested in doing some marina slips for their customers who could come in by boat and enjoy the restaurants via a boating experience. We kind of waited and waited and waited. They kept saying that they still wanted to go forward with it. Eventually, after a long wait, we were communicated that they had really withdrawn that idea, and they were not going to be participating in that joint development anymore. So the original sketches that Brandon showed you included a connection between the pier and the marina, and what that was supposed to be looking like. So we're now going on this project by ourselves. We have our budget that have been allocated for this. We're hoping to complete this within the budget, and we do have in my mind, a little bit of flexibility that if if the budget gets to be too tight, we can always make this fishing pier a little bit smaller than we're presenting in front of you today. We know that there is already a clientele for fishing in the area. There's a lot of people who go fishing almost every day at the Sunset Park, I think. On the parking lot area of Sunset Park, they gather and everything else and fish. So I guess the fishing must be good, but providing the proper amenity for residents. There's no additional parking being built with this, so we're not really trying to attract non-residents with the bicycles that the planning department is proposing, and they will provide the some mobility for local people to go to the pier and either just enjoy the pier or do some fishing there. But it is part of what our comp plan calls for. It's part of what the Corey Avenue plan calls for. And I think eventually it will be a good amenity for the community. The FDET permitting is a long process, and there's no guarantee that they'll approve it or approve it at that size. I know that there's some concerns about navigational issues, and if the commission wanted to downsize the width of the project, so we don't have to go to 60 feet. I mean, we could do something that brings it back to 50, 45 if the commission feels that we're jumping too much into the navigational aspect of this, or we can let DEP tell us what is doable there. Those are the two options that we have there. I don't really have anything else. Happy to answer any questions the commission might have.
I have one question for you, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
If we go up to Ron McKinney Park at the north end of the pass, we have a fishing pier there.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know how far that one sticks out into the pass? I know the pass is a lot wider right there, would be different, but that doesn't seem to me to be a 60-foot dock, is it, that fishing pier?
Offhand, I'm not sure. Do you happen to?
No, I don't think, I mean, from what I know, I don't think so.
I mean, that seems to me like it would be maybe half that, maybe 30 feet off of the seawall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it's a T-shaped pier. It's a different style pier. I understand that, but
yeah. And I mean there many times, but I don't remember. But yeah, it doesn't feel like 60, right?
yeah. My concern would be that does seem like it sticks out into the pass a long way, and that is it's a tricky corner right there to navigate with a boat.
Currents are very strong as well there.
Yeah. And my concern also would be if you're 60 feet out into that pass right there, and then you've got somebody that really knows how to throw a lure. I mean, you can get a long ways out into the pass right there, and I don't know. It does seem like it might be a little far out into the pass to me. I would love to see something there because I think it would be great to have something at that end of Corey Avenue where you'd be able to get out onto the water. But I don't know, I think we might just need to look at reducing the size of that a bit.
Do you have a number in mind that you want to make a motion to modify it to?
And again, that's why I was kind of trying to see how far the one up on Ron McKinney Park is. But I would say maybe 30.
Okay.
Off of the seawall. I mean, and even that's.
I'm not sure that. So the question I would have, Brandon, is how many people are using the other one that we have?
McKinney?
Yeah.
We don't. I don't think we have a way to measure that.
Okay, so I'm just saying it's if we have one that's a mile and a half north that is or is not getting used, we don't know. When you look at the aerials, when you look at the depth of the channel where you're proposing on putting that, even if you cut it down to 30 feet, that is the deepest part of the channel. So when people come in with boats, especially if they have a bigger boat, they're hugging as close to that wall as possible. right? And so now you're taking 30 feet, 60 feet, now you're pushing them into the shallow waters. Then you've got 10 guys, 20 people out there with fishing poles, casting out another 30, 40 feet. So now you've cut that 225, 250 feet down in half, and now they're on the sand, right? So where do they go with the boats? I guess the question I have is like, what problem are we trying to fix? Because you can certainly fish from the seawall. People are doing it from both parks, Sunset Park and Fisherman's Park. It's called Fisherman's Park, right? And now, I mean, and we're looking at spending a significant amount of money, 250, potentially more, because we don't have any bids on it yet. I'm not saying we don't maybe need to look at beautifying that park. I'm just not sure that this particular project actually meets the standards for the comprehensive plan for safety, and some of the other criteria is laid out in the comprehensive plan.
Mr. Mayor, I have very similar, I wrote some comments about this, and I believe it's a navigable water, but whether it's navigable or not, I mean, I went out there on Sunday in prep for the meeting. Tide was low, and those who live in the area will know the sand. We've got a sandbar in the channel, and we've got the sand pushing in from the west, pushing east. So similar comments. Today it's a tight corner, and people hug that wall. So and yeah, I'm not a fisherman, so I don't know how long a good cast is, but you can play out the scenario of contention, and I don't want to create an unintended consequence. I think, look, in the investment in beautifying the city and adding facilities to the city for residents, absolutely, sign me up. But we've got to make sure that we don't create unintended consequences. I said the same thing that I'm about to say during the budget review for this, that I agreed with it, moved forward, but before we decided to do it, we needed to get input from the boating community because contention is a concern. And I have a watercraft. I don't have the big boat, but you watch, and even if you sit at Woody's and just have a beverage and watch the boats, there's been problems. Some people don't behave, and people need to behave, but we don't want to create an unintended consequence of a safety issue and extra contention. It'd be interesting to see what DEP has to say. When I read through some of the comments, we talk about parking. We don't need parking, but there is no parking there. There is no place for people to come. It's good to have I'm trying to figure this out. The parking will turn into Sunset Park. It's interesting. We've got Sunset Park, which is really a parking lot with a seawall. And then we've got, which people abuse, and I know, Envoy Point, which is in my district, we have concerns for Envoy Point, because people walk onto the seawall, and despite Envoy Point's ongoing efforts and investments to put up fences and trees and everything, people still jump it because they think there's better fishing on Envoy Point's property. So I know we're trying to push people to the north to fix that problem, but maybe, in Fisherman's Park, people are fishing on the seawall. But Sunset Park, I don't know if we're really getting the best utilization. So I was thinking, maybe we just need to redesign the two of them. Because Sunset Park is nothing but parking and a seawall.
And lots of fishing.
And lots of fishing.
Lots of fishing.
And when people take pictures, I mean, it's a nice place. So the other thing we need to be cognizant of is, Blind Pass Channel is the key access point to the Gulf for the boating community at the north end of the city. And if we create a problem and a bottleneck there, we're again putting in a nice fishing dock, but now the boaters, we've got to talk with our boating community. So I think we need a little bit more activity, more work and analysis on this so that we don't have, quote, the unintended consequences. And maybe there's a different approach that we can take, again, to provide amenities, to improve, improve. It's not the nicest of areas. I mean, it's a little park with a seawall. So those are my concerns. So I'm not sure if we're ready to move forward on this right now.
Understood. I did look up your question from earlier. The state does use slightly different language. The state is projection into the water body. Locally, we do use the navigable width. I don't know how the state defines it. That was one of their response questions, but we have demonstrated, at least through the permit, that it would meet that 1/4, but we haven't received feedback from them on the second review yet.
The problem is, and I think it's highlighted in one of the letters you forwarded, from our side, the St. Pete Beach side, looking to the west, yes, we meet everything. But from west looking east,
Understood.
it's different, right? It's the sandbar, and part of that, I think the resident points out, and those who've been down the channel, it turns into a beach. I mean, the sand has shifted, and the tide goes out, it turns into a nice beach. I mean, we were looking at it, well, this is nice. They walk out of their condos, and they have a beach right out their front door. But the reality is, it turns into a beach. So I know part of this is the renourishment and the dredging, and things change, but as the Commissioner pointed out, there's a lot of churn in that channel already, in that corner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any audience comments?
Deborah Scheckner.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Linda Borgia.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Linda Borgia, 7100 Sunset Way, Envoy Point. Our view is of Blind Pass and this intersection. Our concern has been for several years about the boat speed through there, and we had worked with the city 2 years ago to go to Treasure Island because they kind of control the signs, the navigation signs in there. And we wanted to get the speed reduced, especially around the corner, because it is a blind pass corner. There is no sign on the south side of the pass. There's a sign warning you on the weekends on the north side of the pass as you enter that says slow speed. But when the jetties were put in about 5 years ago, they removed the sign that was on the land and nothing ever got replaced. So 2 years ago, Mr. Ray was trying to get buoy markers on the St. Pete Beach side for minimum wake within 200 feet of the seawall, which is city code. So that's my concern and some of my neighbors, just that we need to slow the speed down there. Anyhow, your dog beach or beach is also a mooring place for a lot of boats. So not only do you have people out there swimming, you have boats moored there. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have a motion on the conditional use for Fisherman's Park? The motion, there's no motion.
Okay. So let me ask, I'm kind of sort of deferring, I'm listening and sort of deferring to the commissioners that are most affected. I mean, I had some concerns too. I've, boated there right past here hundreds of times, and, I don't have as much of a problem right there. The challenge is coming in out of the inlet. If you use that boat, when you've got the big waves and the current and everything going, and you have other boats, that's the tight spot. You should be going slow speed, minimum wake right there. So it really is, it's a little bit of a pinch point, and I think a dock would be nice, but I hear the concerns, so, I mean, I'm open to it. If they're going to give me a motion, I'm okay with that. If there is going to be, I think it should be a smaller dock. And I was going to suggest no mooring or docking of boats.
I think we may need to look at this a little bit more. Like I said, I just think there's some safety concerns here. I don't know.
So,
I'm real comfortable with.
So let me get some guidance from the city attorney. I guess that's the applicant. I can withdraw the application right now, right? Or does it need to get denied?
You can if you want to keep working on this, if it's sort of like, hey, go back to the drawing board, give us some other proposals so that we can talk about it, you can do that.
I think that's kind of what I'm hearing, is go back to the drawing board and maybe do something
Come up with-
smaller, some different options.
Smaller or something together with Sunset Park.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
There's a lot of land there, actually,
Right.
between the two.
So I think it's, if you were to deny an application like this, I think you have to wait, I'm thinking of variances, but maybe 6 months before you reapply, unless it's a totally different, I'm staring at Brandon over there, but, but either way, I think the instructions are to go, let's think about this a little bit more. So you can do, he can withdraw the application, or you can motion to deny it. I wouldn't just leave it on the table as no motion, take an action to it, or do you want it to?
I think what I'm hearing is withdraw it, go back to the drawing board and maybe come up with some different options.
We need to discuss it a little bit more.
If that's cleaner, then yeah.
Okay, all right, yep, do it that way.
Okay, so application is withdrawn?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have 6 items for discussion. Commissioner Grill, you're up first.
The first one was
Quarry Landings.
Quarry Landings. So I think, as we know, we were updated that the developer, Ram Development, has decided not to purchase the property. So I think this would be a good time for the city manager and/or city attorney to maybe fill in the blanks. There's a lot of discussion in the community. What happened? Why are they walking away? They were so gung-ho, et cetera, and then, more importantly, what happens next? And do we have any official position from the developer on what happened?
So I'll start with the last one. I've spoken to the attorney for the developer, and she's told me that neither Ram or Fortress, which is the property owner, they both have a policy on not making comments when deals don't get completed. So we're not going to get an official statement from them. I know that since they apply, there's a lot of economic conditions that have changed. So purely on a speculative basis, I know that interest rates went up, cost of construction went up. They discovered environmental issues where they were going to have to be spending money. They had issues with the FEMA waivers that they were trying to get for pilings, and so there's a lot of things that happened. As I told the planning board yesterday, I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision. They are basically $700,000 in permit fees that they have paid, and I will not be surprised that they spend at least $200,000-300,000 more in attorneys, engineers, architects, blah 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 blah. So I think they had about $1 million into this deal already.
Did they pay for those permit fees?
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
Okay.
we have that.
And those are non-refundable. Sorry.
And I'll get to the second part. Right. So the applicant is always has to be the property owner who signs the permit application. So Fortress is the applicant on the permit fees, to a letter saying that RAM, as developer, is going to be managing and processing the permit application. What I do understand is that Fortress is looking for somebody to step in the shoes of RAM, and that's really all we know. How they step into the shoes of RAM is going to control what happens next and how much of it needs to happen next. Because it could be as in one extreme, somebody who wants to build exactly something that RAM wanted to build, and then that will go through certain level of approvals, to somebody who wants to build something completely different than what RAM wanted to build. The building permit fees, if somebody just happened to want to build exactly the same thing, then the building plan review fees will apply to that existing permit application. That existing permit application is still valid and ongoing. Personally, I know how developers think, that everybody thinks that they can do a better product than the next person. So the likelihood of somebody wanting to do exactly something, it's, to me, is small, but it could happen. But the number of scenarios that can happen through there extend the entire gamma. And what process happens later, it will all be dependent on how much things are going to be changing.
So that's the permits for the project go with the property, to the property owner, same as I guess with a residential. If you start a project and you decide to sell the house in the middle, someone can pick it up and finish the construction. What about the conditional use permit? We gave a number of items. There were a number of items approved in the CUP, and I do remember the representative for the developer, who happened to also be the same representing the seller, spent a lot of time here extolling the virtues of Ram Realty and why, as by the way, as they should. I mean, that's what their job is. Mm-hmm. And we made a decision based on the information that was provided, based on Ram Realty. Now Ram Realty's out.
Right.
Is the CUP, what happens to the CUP?
I don't know if I would ready to answer that.
I'll tell you it's a good question. It's a very good question, because one of the unique things about your CUP criteria, especially this, is the evaluation of the expertise and I don't have the exact wording, but it's basically like the financial wherewithal to be able to complete the project as presented, and that's one of the review criteria is when it's brought to you. And of course, as you stated, RAM was the developer and that you were evaluating, and that's why they did that, because that's part of the criteria. They showed it to you. So that is one of the things that we are talking about and looking at, and I'm not prepared to make a full decision on it, but I will tell you that, like typically, the typical process, it would be that you would get an entitlement like this, like a CUP entitlement for development. The property owner was on the application, and the developer didn't close on the property, and they're going to want to try to assign that entitlement to another developer that may buy that. So that's the typical way that I'm sure that's what they're thinking their next steps are, is like who's the next developer to stand in the shoes, and they would have to try to assign that CUP entitlement for the development as it stands. Now, I think it's a unique question, and I'm going to continue to look at it. I'm not prepared to give you a definitive answer. I don't think we should right now. But that is one of the questions that is on your review criteria 4.4 or whatever it is. You want to know that you're approving something that's actually going to happen, and it's going to be high quality, and that's one of the criteria that you did look at. So I want to try to analyze that in terms of what does that mean if they get another developer, and is that a substantial change? Is it an insubstantial change? Does it need to go back to the commission to have that assignment only? Basically, if they come back in and say, we want to do exactly the same plan, no changes, whatever, just want to take Ram's name off it and put this name on it, does that have to go in front of the commission for that one particular issue of their financial ability to complete it? I don't know what the full answer is yet.
Because I also don't remember any discussion that there were, what it appears in hindsight now is there seemed to be a number of contingencies, and again, it's a private agreement, but a number of contingencies to allow RAM to pull out. And again, it's a commercial decisions. I respect their commercial decision. But I wasn't aware, and nor do I remember having the discussion, that all these contingencies were there, and here we are. The CUP was 8 months ago, a year ago? Year and a half at this point? Oh, time flies. That this far into the process, there's still another contingency to have them be able to pull out. So anyway, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. It's a good question, and I get it, that people want to know. There are, this type of development, where it's located, the environment, there were a lot of steps that needed to be taken after municipal approval, not the least of which was the brownfields designation, and they did spend money on that. They were moving forward. So for whatever reason, they didn't close. We're not at that table, and nor do I really want to be. But it's unfortunate, because I know it was one of the things that, there were some public benefits that came along with that, because you also had an ordinance that devoted quite a few units from your pool in exchange for public benefits, and that was going to be a catalyst, so to speak, of the area. So we're gonna have to put our heads together on this one. I'll be honest with you. I'm not gonna just try to throw out an answer to make you,
No, take the time to get us the right answer, of course. Thank you.
And the answer might be easy if they decide to completely change their project, because
it'll have to come in front of you.
Or basically put in language there saying that the design and the final product has to be essentially the same things that you saw here, right? So, right now we're dancing in the head of a pin, but the answer might just be, no, they're completely doing something completely different, and it'll be easier, right?
And I'm not really too surprised that there were contingencies right down to the very end, because when you think about it, there are all kinds of things that don't happen until the very end. The interest rates, construction costs, the unsuitable soils. You don't really know that until you go pretty deep in. Obviously, never planned it this way. Who would spend over $1 million to walk away? So it's just circumstances,
And there may not have been any contingencies at the end. They may have just decided to walk away, and
who knows?
We don't know.
Right,
we don't know.
A lot of that was private decision making.
Now,
I know one of the questions that the first thing that I thought when I heard about that was, and I've read this from several residents, and I've received a few emails on this as well, is, it seems to be the consensus from some of the residents that we may have missed an opportunity with Lido Park and the Duke Energy property for not having a discussion with them about the city acquiring that property. And so one of the questions that I have is, one, does anybody even want to have a conversation about acquiring this property? I mean, there's the Brownsfield issue, there's other issues and so on. But if we want to have a conversation, I think that's a conversation worth having, especially in light of the previous conversation with Fisherman's Park. I think an area like this, for example, is far more suited to having a fishing pier, even having, public docks where people can come, go to Corey Avenue, visit the shops, the Sunday market, go to the restaurants, and actually have a point. Because right now, we really don't have any place where boaters can stop in and come into the city and take advantage of what we have, especially in the downtown area. And so that's one of the questions I have is one, is there an interest from the commission, and the residents? And then second, if there is, how do we approach it?
So I've had this conversation for some time with various residents, and in my own head, maybe myself several times, is, look, the property's expensive.
Less so now, because of the Brownsfield.
Well, does the city buy it? Okay, so where do we get the funding? I mean, just talking out loud here, right? Following on from what you brought up. The city buys it. Do we float a bond? I know other cities have had joint partnership, public-private bonds, where residents, people invest, people buy it because it's expensive. We don't have the money for it, we know. that. And then we put some stipulations in that for 99 years it has to be green space or something. And I'm just, we'll have to leave it to the city attorney to tell me if this is a pipe dream or not. It becomes green space for 99 years, and then use some of our capital investment in our 5-year capital plan to fix up the property over time. Now, with the brownfields designation, I don't know what that means for the property. Yeah. And as we saw, I think there's some concerns, or there were, based on this project, on the foundation and the quality of the land. So maybe it was a foundation issue. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because, we did have, I'll tell you personally, I received mixed messages from residents. I'm sure we all did. Some people loved it. And to today, some people say this is a shame. And there's others who are, partying in the street for the last week and a half because they were vehemently against it. But that aside, is there something? It's a far-fetched idea.
But first, I'd just like to make a kind of clarification on that Lido Park that was brought up at least on 2 occasions here at the commission. Right. We had asked the city manager to approach Duke, because my idea was, they're an entity that might be willing to give us a good deal and do a tax write-off. But they apparently were not interested. They were more interested in getting cash, and I guess tax write-off was not in bag. So we did try pretty hard to get that. This, would it be a beautiful park that could kind of wrap around a Haran Park and all that? Yeah, it might be. Question would be how much and how would we pay for it? That's the big issue. Because, you look at what St. Petersburg did and how they established the waterfront parkland down there really makes a difference in downtown St. Pete. So I don't know what that land is worth. I have no idea.
Do you want me to ask the price?
I think it wouldn't hurt.
I can ask what the price is.
Ask what it is, and I don't know, again, the cleanup, the environmental cleanup, what that would, entail either.
Yeah, I think we can probably get a good handle on that, because all of these reports that they submitted to the state are public records, so we can probably get a handle on that. But if you want me, I can start by asking, what the number is.
I don't know what kind, I know grants take a long time, but there are some grants for, this type of an acquisition. The challenge is how long would that take, and how do you go about that process? And, can you do that while the owner's still, trying to sell it? Right. And then whoever comes first with the better deal gets it. I don't know how that works.
Is there an opportunity here, and what would the process look like if you wanted to do some kind of tax benefit? As I remember the asking price, and I was trying to find it, but if memory serves me, the asking price and the Brownsfield cleanup were about the same. And so that, in my mind at least, that significantly devalues the property. So one of the questions I would have as far as value goes, if we're simply keeping it as green space with maybe boat docks, is cleanup required at that point, or can it be deferred because we're not digging down, we're not adding pilings and foundations and everything else? And then also back to the tax issue, is there an opportunity to approach the owner and say, maybe we don't have as much cash as a developer would, but we can get you close, especially in light of the Brownsfield. And then the other issue related to Brownsfield is, now that we're aware of it, what responsibility does the current owner have to do something about it, if any? I don't know.
We will research that one on the brownfields. My recollection is a lot of what they have is arsenic, and I have experience dealing with arsenic, and arsenic is very stable poison, which the good side of it is that it doesn't decompose and doesn't degrade into the aquifer, or but the bad thing about it is that it doesn't change either. It just stays there until you're going to disturb it and going to be doing something with it. But I'll get more into what really is up there and what happens with the state in terms of the brownfields application and any obligations that might exist. I also want to remind the commission that you are actually dealing with 2 different parcels. And sometimes if your packet doesn't allow for the entirety of it, you do have a north parcel and the south parcel. So the area where the restaurant was supposed to be on the north side is a completely separate parcel than the south side. So just, keep that in mind as well when you're thinking of what you could do there potentially.
And they're both owned by the same owner?
They're all owned by the same owner, that's correct.
Yep.
Fortress.
Yeah. So we'll research that, and then we'll know what. I can tell you that there seems to be interest. My staff and I have gotten 3 different calls from local people saying, do you have a contact with the property owners, because they are interested on approaching the property owners. So,
Yeah, and if anybody
I don't know
wants,
if that's going to translate into anything, right? Because,
and if anybody wants to get their name on a park and donate money for acquiring the land,
I would consider naming rights.
I'm
you know of any,
sure we could consider naming rights.
if you know of any rich person writing a will, then send them our way.
I'm sure we have a few in the city, so
Yeah,
if
you
anyone
never-
is interested.
You never know.
Jokes aside, I mean, there are creative
Yeah,
financing arrangements on,
Yeah.
joint partnerships.
No,
Go fund me, I mean.
yeah, well, no, but I mean, and Alex could probably brief you on this later, but you do have a lot of tools at your disposal if you need money and you need to act quickly. I mean, some are restricted to certain types of things like capital projects, but you have options as a city on how to raise money quickly if you need it. Well, not so quickly, but I mean, if you don't have cash in the bank, so to speak, but you have ways of getting money, and you have very good credit. The city's in good financial situation, thankfully. So, and I mean, I'm sure Alex can brief you on all those different avenues.
So I think as a next step, do we want the city manager to get us a price?
Sure. Yeah, I think we sort of all agreed to that.
Yep.
Start there.
The price, and I think you're going to look into a little bit on the environmental issues, the
Brownfield.
unsuitable soils, brownfields.
Yep.
That's at least a starting point.
And we'll look into some grants, state
And
has
grants,
money
yes,
for
yeah, exactly.
land preservation,
Yeah.
park preservation.
Yeah.
And
Florida Forever.
Yeah,
Florida Land
Forever,
Trust.
any and all opportunities there.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Good discussion on that one. All right, we have next 6B, Florida League of Cities.
Yep, this one's pretty simple. I think just in the past, we've kind of talked about who's going to go and kind of get authorization from the commission. I'm considering it. Is anybody else considering?
Do you remember what the dates are?
It's August 11th. Let me just,
I think we also have to define the rep for voting purposes.
That's sent to me by the Florida League, so once I get that,
Oh, they haven't sent it yet?
no.
Okay.
Once I get it, I'll put it on the
but
agenda.
we have a primary and a secondary.
Yes, that's correct. Typically, we get a form from the Florida League of Cities that I'm responsible for filling out. Typically, I bring it to you all at a commission meeting, then I move forward
Right.
with sending it.
So normally we'll see if the primary can go, and that's the voting member, and the secondary is the alternates. Kind of the way we've always done it. It's Thursday, August 10th, Friday the 11th, and Saturday the 12th. Not that you have to go for all 3 days, but typically there are seminars are mostly on, I think, Friday and Saturday, if I remember. Maybe a
I
little
went
bit
last
Thursday.
year. I went all 3 days. It was very useful.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
useful.
It's good to go. It's in Orlando, so it's a little bit closer.
Yeah. I was in some place called Hollywood. It's a nice place.
Still is.
So I guess I'm just asking for authorization from anyone on the commission that wants to attend.
I plan to attend.
Okay. Could we ask the city clerk, can you still see, I know at least in the past, the hotels would go quick, and you really want to be in the hotel where it's happening, because
Yeah, yeah.
if you're forced to be off-site, it's hard to attend everything. So if you could just check that for us.
Do we have a limit on how many people can go, or?
No, I think we've budgeted for all 5 of us, but 5, I don't think have ever gone.
I mean, I'd like to go.
It's one of these, you get as much out of it as you put into it.
Right.
Right.
And if you want to get out
Yeah.
of it. As with
Okay.
any conference.
That's all, that's really all I want to bring up. Thank you.
That was 6B. 6C, the TRC Serrata, we had a discussion on that earlier. And then 6D, I just wanted to have a quick discussion for the purpose of public record. We had a conversation on Tuesday, a week ago Tuesday, on the 22nd at 9 o'clock in the morning. And one of the things that was brought up at the time was that we may have had an employee who was supposed to start that day, but because of the current limitations placed on the city manager, that employee, there was some discussion whether that employee could or could not start. I know everyone in the commission received an email already clarifying the issue, but because it happened in a public forum, I think it is important that we also make the correction in a public forum so that everyone knows exactly what happened. Otherwise, you're just stuck with the information from last Tuesday. As I understand the timeline, and I became aware of the issue because I received an invitation from the Public Works Department to attend their monthly barbecue staff lunch. So I attended, and I met a lot of the men and women who work in public works, and we had a great barbecue lunch. And we had Mike's wife provided quite a spread. And as I was introduced to the different people that work there, one gentleman comes up and says, "Hi, I'm so and so," and I said, "Hey," it's like, "Yeah, it's his first day." I said, "Really?" It's like, "Yeah, I've been here since 6 o'clock this morning." It's like, okay. Conversation we had about an employee not being able to start was at 9:30. The city attorney, working backwards, received an email at 7:30 asking the question, "Hey, what about this employee? We're potentially holding up their employment." At that time, that employee was already working since 6 or 6:30 that morning. And so I just want to make it clear that at no point there was ever a possibility that employee was already on premise working. There was never a discussion about whether that employee could or could not start. I'm not sure where that came from. I'm not going to, read into any intent into that, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows, city operations are happening as normal. That employee was offered an engagement letter 30 days ago on the 24th of May. That was accepted, and that person had already started work that Tuesday morning at 6 or 6:30. So I just wanted to clarify that. All right. Next, we have 6E, related to nuisance, noise, and enforcements. So I've received, I receive a fair number of emails and phone calls, but I just want to share a couple of the ones from the last few weeks that I've had. Omar was here earlier today. I know we've all heard from him at the boat ramp. I know, Betty, you've been talking about the boat ramp and the kayak situation that's ongoing there with the noise. And so when I received, that email and phone call from the gentleman again, I said, "Look, I'm free. I'll show up and I'll just sit here and we'll watch together what happens," right? When I arrived, they were already parked illegally. Then at some point, the resident decided to call the sheriff because they were parked illegally on a corner in front of a sign. To their credit, the sheriff showed up within about 10 minutes on a non-emergency call on a Saturday night, which was very busy for them. Sheriff came, they spoke to the operators. Between when the call was made and when the sheriff showed up, they started arriving back in their kayaks. And so I couldn't hear the conversation. My assumption is that the operator said, well, we're just here loading up this truck. At which point the sheriff, I'm assuming that's the way the conversation went. All right, you guys finish loading up and then, get out of this spot. Well, they were there for another hour after the sheriff left. And then as their customers were leaving, on the southwest corner of that intersection where the boat ramp is, where the Don Cesar parking lot is, there are also townhouses and condos on that corner. And that entire corner wrapping around is all designated permit parking for residents only. And the resident and I, we sat there and we watched as car after car after car left from the resident permitted parking that's designated for residents. Now, they show up at 7:30, long before the sign that says, permit parking up until 8 p.m. And there was about 7 or 8 cars from their customers that left. Then there were 2 more of the operator cars that were parked there as well in the resident-only parking. Then the 2 big trucks with the trailers left as well, the illegally parked one and the one parked in the in the trailer parking zoning. So that was one instance. I had another one. I received a call at 10:15 at night about 3 Fridays ago on the mayor's phone line. By the way, anyone needs to call me. My number is on the city website. I do generally answer it if I can, even at 10:30 at night, because that usually tells me something serious is happening at this point. And the conversation I had with that resident at one of the condos on the beach was, again, what we heard from somebody earlier was giant boombox, and I have I received a video from the resident, their condo, which is set back 150, 200 yards from the grass to the sand, and then another, 50, 100 yards to the water, her windows were vibrating, That's how bad the music was at 10 o'clock at night. The dogs on the beach, I've seen it myself plenty of times. The illegal parking, whether it's in Paso Grill, I see it on my street all the time, illegal parking on the corners, close to fire hydrants, all over the place. And, to what Commissioner Grill mentioned earlier is these are not new issues. We've heard them many times. And I think it's time that we, come up with some action that we want to take as a commission. A couple of the things that I saw just this past weekend, my wife and I just went down the street, across Gulf Boulevard to go just watch the sunset, Friday night, and get to the beach, and sure enough, there's somebody with a, giant tower, speaker tower, just blasting music. And I took a video, I have my decibel meter on me, I'm about 100 feet away and it's reading 75, 74 decibels, which is about, 9 or 10 above our, noise ordinance. And then we're walking back across Gulf Boulevard, and then there's one of the restaurants with a similar setup, right? Giant speakers in their front door on Gulf Boulevard, just blasting the entire street with music, right? And so, a lot of this just comes down to quality of life for residents. And some of it is, we're trying to project this image of a family-friendly town, right? Where this is where you come, this is where you bring your kids, this is where you bring your grandkids because it's nice, because it's safe, because it's clean. And it just seems that some of it is getting away from us. And it's in many ways affecting, as the gentleman said earlier, 6 nights a week he's dealing with this. 6 nights a week. I don't know what I would be like after 6 months or a year of not getting, an hour and a half less sleep every night. And so I think we need to come up with a plan and take some actions to address some of these issues. And again, it's been brought before the commission many times. It's an issue of enforcement. And I think maybe as a commission we can say, look, okay, here's some of our priorities where we'd like to see more enforcement. I, for one, would love to see more enforcement on parking. I would like to see more enforcement on noise ordinances, on animals on the beach, making sure that we have a nice, clean, family-friendly environment for our residents as well as for our visitors. I think anything that we can do to maintain and raise that level would be important for us to take a look at.
I think, I think we, look, our enforcement team works hard, and I know that they're stressed.
And stretched.
Yes, I'm trying to say stretched. Sorry, it's late.
Yeah.
Um,
And
So-
this is not a knock on them. It's
No,
just
right, no, I think the problem we have is
two for a very long island.
the, I call the bad behavior seems to be ticking up from time to time, right? Why do we have dogs on the beach? We all go look, we all have our lists, we all get calls, I'm sure, and, I'm sure we're all just as frustrated. Why would somebody do that? Why would somebody bring Boombox Tower to the beach and blast it? To them, I guess they think they're having fun, and if no one tells them they can't, they do it.
Okay.
So are we, as with anything, are we structured properly? I know we've had discussions about, we've got to balance, we can't have people working 24 hours a day.
Mhm.
Maybe we need to make an investment. I mean, we did, I ran a manufacturing plant, we hired people, your job, you work second shift.
Yep.
You don't want to work second shift, you don't work, thank you, but this position is a second shift position, or a third shift position, if we have to, because if we're not able to address the problem, then we've got to change the model or enhance the model, and it may be spending money, and I'm sure, Michelle is here, our community development director. I'm sure she's just as frustrated. Her team is just as frustrated to hear this. And even I had a discussion with someone received a complaint from a resident, and the city manager helped me talk with a ranking officer in the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. He was frustrated, right, to get that feedback, but he contacted the resident, and they had a good discussion. So when I hear all of this, to me, we got to look at the model, and by changing the model or enhancing the model, hopefully we can change behavior. You're never going to eliminate it 100%.
Right.
But, and I know it's frustrating for everybody and for residents alike, so that's just my view.
Yeah, a few other comments. I know you talked about quite a few different things, some kind of unique and pinpointed to the kayaks. Obviously, I think that's something that we need to, deal with directly. But I encourage residents, I give out the sheriff's non-emergency line all the time. I have residents tell me I hate to call them just for a dog on the beach, and I say that's what they're there for. They're asking you to call. If people don't call because they got to catch them in the act, then they don't know. I've personally seen less dogs on the beach over the last few years. I haven't on the beach probably at least 3 or 4 days a week. Maybe I'm just not in the right place. I haven't seen the boom boxes. So I think we need to inform the staff of where those things are happening. I haven't seen any of that, and I'm on the beach a lot. So, but we need to stay after it. It can change. It could be good today, and it's not so good tomorrow. But I have that non-emergency line I give out right away, and I've talked to people, and the residents have now said, yeah, I called the sheriff, and they're really good about it. And if it's not an emergency, they're going to take care of emergencies first. But they're on top of the sheriff's on top of it too. So I think we just got to be more specific with staff as to where are the problem areas, certain days, certain locations, certain times, so that they could be aware of it and deal with it.
And the part that we can control the most is the parking enforcement. And we right now have an ad for part-time parking enforcement officers, so we can have people specifically assigned to the weekends, because obviously that's where our peaks are. So we're going to be hiring either 2 or 3 people to work weekend parking enforcement and be able to deploy them some at night. So that part is where we can easily react to. Some of the other issues, like the boombox, like the dogs on the beach, are things that we have to work with the sheriff's office, because we would never want to put in our code enforcement people interacting with somebody who has a boombox, who has dogs on the beach, because those interactions can degrade very, very quickly, number one. Because I've seen people that have dogs on the beach basically attack the police officer because the police officer told them they had to leave with their dogs. So, and that's somebody who has a gold badge and a gun. And no, I don't think our code people. First of all, any violations that our code can issue are against property. You know, the code guy cannot tell you, cannot see your driver's license, or can give you a civil citation. That is done by the police, and we are working closely with them. I mean, Mark, you know that when we get a complaint from somebody, the captain and everything else follows up on every time that has been actually complained. So they're responsive. Now, does everybody in the department gets the message that that they need to be as on top of things as they should? Sometimes that happens in a large organization, but I communicate, I would say, with the sheriff's office at least once a week in terms of issues that come up, and we always get to the bottom of the issues when there is a concern. But I'm not saying that there's not a problem by any means, Mr. Mayor.
Is there something we could do with our community policing officers? Because, I mean, they're generally the ones who are out there.
Yes.
And just to be able to say, look, for the next couple months, here's some things that we're seeing regularly or more regularly in the last few weeks.
Right.
Let's keep an eye on these things and maybe issue more tickets rather than just a lot of ones.
And I want to define expectations. We got 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Which means that on any given day, we only have 2. Some days we have 1 because they work 4-day shifts. So, and those people on a Saturday where there are issues going on the street, there's issue going on the beach, they cannot be everywhere at all times. They're going to cover whatever they can cover. And yeah, I can talk to them about our goals, but I think you know that the final decision on any issuance of a civil citation, an issue on an arrest, rests solely with the officer. He or she have to make their own judgment as to the merits of the situation. So, but I have spoken to them about the boom boxes, and basically have, as I told you, given them my interpretation as to what a nuisance is. And so I have armed them with that knowledge, because under the code, you don't have to be in violation of the noise ordinance to be a nuisance. And I think there was a little bit of confusion a couple of months ago as to, if I don't have my decibel meter, can I issue a violation? Yes, you can still issue a violation, because if you're disrupting somebody else's quiet enjoyment of being on the beach, that's a nuisance. And so we're working through the education process, and but at least on the parking side, we'll hopefully in the next few weeks we'll have additional resources that we can throw into that. And I think you guys saw the report. The last long weekend, we basically issue almost $40,000 worth of tickets of violations. So the funds are there to provide more enforcement, and we're going to be doing that. So.
One of the things I had suggested about a year ago or more, and I know some people won't agree, but I always look at the model and say, what do we need to do for the model, change the model. And I know other towns do this. Other towns in Florida have some sort of citizens auxiliary police force, or by some other name, to supplement. And obviously, there is a concern about putting people in harm's way. But just to have the coverage, the arms and legs, the presence, it can help. And I don't know, because I've had personal, friends who were involved with them. And yeah, there are some East Coast cities, and we don't want to be like the East Coast of Florida, but okay, that's another discussion. But it worked Boynton Beach, for example, or Jacksonville Beach, I think it was Boynton, Jacksonville Beach. You know, the problems we have are similar problems to Barrier Island, tourist towns, lots of residents or lots of visitors coming in on holidays and weekends. And how do you staff it up? How do you meet that extra demand and maintain the quality of life that we want, and residents, you know, that we can maintain our quality of life? It's difficult, you're right. There is a disrespect for, you know, why don't people do the right thing, and why would you empty your, we've all seen it, why would you dump out your garbage in the middle of, you know, Beach Plaza or up in, you know, in the parking lot in Upham Beach? Why would you do that? But people do it. It's unfortunate. So I'm just, you know, trying to think out loud. I mean, it's a big investment. It's not a, you know, it's not a vigilante force. And that's just another idea. And as I said, hiring people for off shift. You work second shift, so you don't get in. Yeah, you pay a premium, but you don't get into the debate. Well, look, I need to go home, and you know, this is when you work.
Yep. I mean, some of that second shift for parking, because it cuts off at 8, it really will only be from 4 to 8.
Yeah, whatever.
So it's not even a full second shift.
Yeah.
Are we in a situation where we, for example, with the community policing officers, we just don't have enough of them?
We went from 2 to 3 about 2 years ago.
And is that enough?
I'm never going to tell you that we have enough police for the expectations that we have.
Is that something?
Can we rebalance between? Can we be rebalanced between regular police officers and community police officers? That's a conversation I need to have with the sheriffs to see how comfortable they are with that.
Or do we want to consider adding?
Yeah.
All right.
For the budget.
I mean, we're having budget discussions right now, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think we need to look at the model and what's the most cost-effective and effective way to do it. Because, I mean, the numbers are the numbers. It's expensive to add a community policing officer, right? It's
about 100 a head.
100 a head, plus we have to pay an investment of equipment investment that's amortized over a few years.
Correct.
So it's, and that gets one person.
Yep.
Do we have an officer that patrols, like with an ATV, that actually drives up and down the beach? Or are all the sheriffs, are just in their main SUVs and they go out on the beach when need be?
Well,
You want to come and address that? I hate to put you on the spot, but you're up there every day.
It seems like if there was a presence there, if there was an ATV that went up and down the beach from time to time, that maybe people would behave.
I see him patrolling about every night. They have that, I'm assuming it's the sheriff with that big spotlight shining back.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
for those of you who don't know me, I'm Deputy Stanton. I am one of the 3 St. Pete Beach community police officers. As far as the 4x4 goes, pretty much all the units, the patrol units that are working on the beach, they typically have a 4x4 Tahoe.
Okay.
So they can for emergency responses, they can typically go out. St. Pete Beach, we have 2 Polaris, those like gas-powered golf carts. There's a 4-seater and a 2-seater. We just got a new one that has full patrol capabilities as far as hooking up our laptop, you know, GPS printer, all that stuff. So we typically go out on that. I can tell you day shift and night shift at a minimum once a day, and we'll do the whole beach.
Okay.
The dog beach. I mean, and typically when we're out there, we are issuing ordinance violations. I can tell you it's very, very rare for us to go from one end to the other and not find any sort of violation. And we typically log that. We have what we call a directed patrol, and the deputies are encouraged because we kind of get brownie points when we go out there. It's not something that we're required to, but at least for our agency, when we go out there, we typically document, you know, how long we're out there. And normally when we go out there, it's a minimum of a 1-hour tour on the sand in those smaller vehicles where we're making contact with people.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So going back to the boat ramp.
Yeah.
From what I've heard from many residents, but particularly the one that lives right across the street from it, it seems that what they're asking for is a reduction of the operating hours to 10 p.m. Are we able to work on an ordinance?
But do we, like you say, you have other boaters that are using that ramp, do we want to reduce the hours of the ramp, or do we want to try to reduce the hours just for the businesses to operate there?
Because it sounds like a behavior problem.
It does. But again, like Commissioner Frazowski was saying, you have boaters and fishermen that are legitimate.
Residents who just go out to fish. I'm not sure how many there are and how many do that, but I just don't want to see any unintended consequences.
Exactly.
Obviously, it's not really meant for, I don't think it was ever meant for a commercial operation. However, we do have to be careful about that during the daytime, because I know people that get docks done and all that.
Yep.
I mean, they almost have to logistically go off of some of those, so, but nighttime commercial operation, it shouldn't be happening. I don't think, how we craft an ordinance to deal with that.
I mean, if we're
No.
restricting commercial activity, I mean, most of our city parks and beaches, for example, is sun up to sundown.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
So is there, I don't know any of the dock guys who sit out there after,
No,
I mean,
no,
they
they don't.
go home
They-
at 3 o'clock.
Right, yeah, I was gonna say a lot earlier than even sunset.
And that seems like it would be reasonable. Then you would be reaching, I mean, in the longest days in the summer, you would be 9 o'clock in July.
Right.
9:30. yeah.
Right,
9:30
sunrise to sunset, they're not, you're right, they're not doing that. They may extend the hours just because they're trying to get the job done, you know, but you're right, construction people, like,
Yeah, I, instead of dropping the hours, I think it's better to do a modification to the ordinance that says no commercial activities without a city permit. And then the city permit can then be the one that restricts the hours. So the regular boater doesn't get impacted, but
Okay.
the commercial operations person does. So I can work with Andrew on
okay, that's,
do a modification to an ordinance that requires a permit for commercial activities.
yeah.
Yeah, very similar to, I mean, you've talked about it with the beach ordinance, you know,
Right.
folks that are acting as a commercial activity to reserve space on the beach, and then we have in our parks, you can't be a vendor in our parks without a BTR, and we can, that was the first thing I was thinking about. Okay, like if they're using the infrastructure here in the city for part of their business model, then they probably should have a BTR.
Yeah, okay.
But then don't we need to have just some kind of restrictions in our, otherwise we could issue a permit and it's just, you could be out till 2 a.m.
That, but in the BTR, you can restrict, you could say, okay, this, if your business is using this, this facility, this boat ramp, you've got it sun up to sundown. You could put those notations in there.
Okay. And that way it would not impact any residents who want to use it until 11 p.m., which is what it currently says.
Right, right. I mean, because it seems like it's a business activity with a lot of intensity that's causing all the racket and all the commotion and all the parking on the street versus just your average person that just might be out paddleboarding and coming in late. I mean, they're gonna, and if they're from the neighborhood, I would imagine they're gonna be a little bit more respectful of their neighbors rather than a business that's not even associated with the city in any way whatsoever.
Do we have something to look at for the next commission meeting or the one after, or what's a good time frame?
One of the two is either the next one or the following. I'll work with Andrew and his team, and we'll have something.
Perfect.
Egan Park is 11? The boat ramp at Egan, are we consistent?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe both are. No.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, I don't boat at 11, so I don't know.
Okay, so we're gonna, city manager, city attorney are gonna work on some kind of permit situation for the boat ramps for,
It's a modification to
Commercial.
the, I believe, is the waterways ordinance that controls that.
okay.
I think the boat ramps are part of that.
And then could we also tie in a follow-up report for the next commission meeting for the conversation on nuisance, dogs, noise, et cetera? Whatever follow-up conversation you're having with the sheriff or code enforcement?
Okay.
Any other discussion on 6E? Then lastly, 6F, the city manager's expenses, Commissioner Grill.
Right, we had said in our meetings last week that we would, city manager would send us a summary, and then we would have it, excuse me, we modified so that we can continue to run the city, then the city manager would send us a list of those expenses, and we would look at those and and do a post-approval, so in the following commission meeting.
And let me explain what I sent, because the two reports are slightly different from each other.
Please.
So, any purchase over $2,500 requires that a purchase order gets issued. So, the first report basically has purchase orders over $2,500 that were issued within that 2-week period. For anything under $2,500, we don't issue purchase orders. Those are done either through just a simple quote or a verbal quote, depending on the amounts. So the second report that I sent you, the long one, basically has payments made over that 2-week period. Because since we don't issue a purchase order, we cannot give you purchase order is an obligation to do work and an obligation to pay for work. The one is kind of after the fact, this is what we pay money for. So that second report gives you payouts during that 2-week period, because that's the only thing we have.
So personally, the first report, I understand, I mean, there's 4 items, there are 4 larger purchases, and I understand the description. I don't think the second report, at least for me, is what I was looking for, because these are payments. I think what we had discussed was no new expenditures. So there's payment, I mean, there's a lot of data in here, and I think we got a dump of, like, insurance payments. Those are BAU telephone. We have payments for telephone. I don't think in the last 2 weeks you approved all these telephone expenses. This is our...
And that's what I'm trying to explain. Because we don't issue obligations for those, I don't have commitments. What I have is payments made. And there's a lag between those two. And this is the first time that we do the report, so...
But how do we get who approves these purchases?
Who approved these purchases? Those are done typically at many different levels of the organization, depending on the amounts. And at that level, none of it really basically raises to more than the department directors can approve a lot of those small payments. Some even at levels below that.
Because we had said just city manager's expenses. We didn't restrict any of the directors.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to keep it
No,
simple.
that's fine.
No, I'm okay. I mean,
I'm trying to give you what we have, and I prefer to give you more, and you tell me, give me less, and Sheila will be very happy.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
simpler.
I'm sure. I don't know how we get there, but I mean, so this is everything. Okay. I'm glad we paid the employee insurance. That's good. That's good.
And it's not everything. We remove payments to other governmental entities, like Sheriff's Office, Pinellas County. We remove all of those. We remove your typical utilities, Duke Energy, $200, water bill, so we remove all of those, or anything that is on a subset payment of a larger contract. So if somebody's doing a $300,000 work for us and has a large contract, and we paid $1,000 on that, then we excluded those as well.
Because most of these, I'm assuming, the expenditure would have been approved prior to 2 weeks ago, since most would have I'm assuming they have, most, if not all, would have 30-day payment terms. Most, I'm assuming, but I don't know. Anyone else? This is what we asked for, so we got what we asked for.
I couldn't open the attachments when it came in, so I didn't get a chance to look at them because when they came in this afternoon, I just couldn't open them.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, to your point, I think it was not all of the staff's expenses, but rather specifically just the city manager's discretionary.
Well, I guess maybe everyone should, since we did get it just late this afternoon, take some time, look at it, and see if this is what we need. And if this is what we need, then we'll stay with it. And
yep.
And
then maybe for the next commission meeting, we can maybe receive it by end of business the previous day. So we have at least 24 hours to look at it.
I'm not doing
It
the
was the
work.
first time, so, you know,
Yep.
we were kind of like, trying to get it to you before the meeting, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on item 6F? All right, next we have reports. City Clerk.
So I've been trying to coordinate the follow-up beach stewardship joint meeting, and I prepared the copy of the doodle poll in front of you. It appears that the best date is Tuesday, July 11th at 4 p.m. We have 2 beach stewardship members that are unavailable.
July 11th. And we have a city commission meeting that day.
Correct.
I mean, we're 65, 70% through the packet, so it's just the last third, if I remember. I mean, I know it could take. I mean, I'm okay with July 4th, 4 p.m., if everybody else is.
July
Say
11th.
that again?
July 11th.
You might be,
That was not one of my choices,
Yeah,
by the way, guys.
That might be the only one that
you might
shows
be,
up.
yeah, it might be quiet meeting. I'm okay for July 11th. I think,
All right, let's do it.
Yep.
Amber, I am not. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be at that Tuesday meeting on the 11th.
Okay. Everyone else is still good. Okay, I'll send out a calendar invite for that.
So just as a clarification, are we going to go ahead then on the 11th? It is a workshop. We're not taking any action.
Right.
Yep.
It's still going to come back before us twice as an ordinance, if you're okay with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm fine.
Okay.
I just won't be able to be here. I apologize.
Yeah, that's,
Okay, I'll send out a calendar invite for that.
thank you.
And then, if you recall, I sent another email about the second meeting for budget, and I gave you guys some dollar amounts for advertising, and I know that the mayor had already conveyed to me that he would be unavailable. This was at our last workshop, so I already knew that he would be unavailable. However, Commissioner Marone is also unavailable on that Friday, which is the lower cost option for advertising as required. And we have to make a decision and have it announced at our second meeting in July so that it can be published on the trim bill. So I do need to settle on these dates. I also wanted to mention to you that if we go, and I don't know what these rates are yet, but just for your information, there are 2 types of millage rates that you can vote on with a simple majority, so that would be 3. However, there are 2 rates that if they're higher, then you need all 4. So I don't know the answer to that at this time because clearly we don't have a rolled back rate estimate while I'm having this conversation with you. I don't really want to spend $7,300 to advertise. I don't feel like that's the best use of our taxpayer dollars. But obviously, we need to know. I don't know if Commissioner Marone is available on Saturday. He didn't answer that question. That I can go back and figure out Saturday if you 3 are available.
What is that date?
yeah, I'm holding so many dates, I just can't keep it straight anymore. I put these on my calendar. What dates are we talking
Anytime
about?
on Saturday, I have to go to that date right now.
In September, right?
September 23rd, it can be at any time. During the weekday, it has to be, after 5 o'clock, and you cannot have it on a Sunday.
So September 23rd would be Saturday.
So I think, to me, we ought to pick a date where it gives us the flexibility. 'Cause I don't think we should decide that we'll only have 3 of us and therefore our hands are tied.
Right.
Especially at this point, we're only in June. Who knows what?
Isn't that that's the second reading?
Yes.
So we're simply, we shouldn't have any changes at that point.
We should.
I understand.
No, but because things are so tight and so
Yeah.
regulated.
And that's one of the reasons when I looked at, when I was going to be out of town, that particular one, it was like, well, we already voted on it, all the discussion happened, it's just the second reading, second ratification of it.
So the first reading of the budget is Monday, September 11th?
That's correct.
Okay, I've got that.
Is there are we allowed to use a Zoom option, which maybe gives people more flexibility, or do you need to be physically present?
So there is some sunshine and Attorney General opinions on voting on Zoom. You can't count for the quorum, which we would have the 3 possibly here.
Oh, it doesn't count for the quorum.
Does not count for quorum. No, that is 100% yes. The other thing is I have to look this up again. There's some arguments made about voting and how that counts. So I can do that research if that's the direction.
We also want to take, unless it's 100% clear, to me, take the conservative approach so that we don't do a vote and then someone says, well, the vote's invalid. And
So that would be the 23rd? That would be Saturday, the 23rd?
Well, that's one option. I have to go back to Commissioner Marone. He didn't answer. I don't recall what the 3 of your responses were
Yeah,
with regard to Saturday the 23rd.
I've got that on my calendar with a question mark. I try and hold them all with question marks.
I think I said Friday. I prefer Friday. I could do Saturday, but prefer Friday. But if we need to do Saturday, do Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I held both.
I'll go back to Commissioner Marone, and then I'll circle back.
So it sounds like either day is available as long as Commissioner Marone has one of them.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm trying to keep the costs down and be
Yeah, I'm holding.
Thank you.
responsible.
Yeah, I'm holding both Friday, September 22nd, and Saturday, September 23rd.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. And then
And could I just clarify one more thing? Since we're meeting on September 11th, that means we're not going to meet on September 12th?
yes, that's correct.
Okay,
Yes,
I just want to
it's
make clear
6
that,
o'clock, for the budget part, and then we go right into, we close that meeting, then we go into
Okay.
the regular meeting. Yes, that's correct.
okay.
So the 12th is off. There's no meeting on Tuesday the 12th. That's been noticed on the calendar, and it will be advertised appropriately. So yeah, I'll go back with Commissioner Marone, and then I'll circle back. Next thing I have is I sent out an email today about lobbying quarterly reports. And I just want to say this to all of you and get it out on the record. I tried to be very clear. I'm trying to do reminders ahead of time. Do not send me anything before the 30th or on the 30th. I will reject it because it needs to be clear for the record. It has to be after the 30th that the report is turned in, but by the 10th of July. So I've already gotten people responding, and I've had to tell them, no, thank you. Thank you, but no thank you. Come back to me on July 1. So, just so that we're clear. I tried to be specific in my email. I'm gonna try to reverbiage this for the next go round.
Thank you.
You were clear, but thank you for the reminder.
You're welcome. I think that's everything.
City Manager?
No report said, but just for clarification for the city attorney, and I don't know if you know the answer, but now that RAM might be coming back as a conditional use approval, any conversations with Elise related to Corey Landings, she might be a lobbyist again for that project. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Say it again?
So, yes.
Did she ever register as a lobbyist?
She's registered, yes.
too, but
She's lobbying for Trey Winds and for Serrata, but the conditional use approval for Corey Landings have been done already. So she was no
Before the ordinance.
for the conditional use approval for Corey Landings had been done.
Before the ordinance.
Before, yeah, right.
The lobbying
We
ordinance.
can just remind her to register at a principal, because that's what it is.
Right, right.
So she may be representing both the property owner and some developer, I don't know, but I think one of us can remind her to
Right. That's gonna
add a
have to be.
principal
Right.
onto her lobbyist stuff.
So I think your point is, though, if we meet with her now,
You has to be included, if you're talking about Corey Landings, right.
or Landis, yes. Thank you for that.
That's it, thank you.
City Attorney?
Yes, this is regarding the barge fishing pier issue. Repair Guy 1 LLC, we issued, as we spoke about We issued a demand letter on June 16th and gave the contractor 2 weeks to respond, I believe, and have heard nothing. And our demand was repayment of the round numbers $92,000 payment plus liquidated damages of $129,000, and also we asked that he communicate this letter to his insurance company. Again, no response, no call, no email, no nothing. Fortunately, we did have his insurance on file because that was part of the original agreement, so we did just put his insurance company on notice. But per code, I need your authorization to initiate, legal action. So that's really the only next step here to, enforcing the situation where you have basically, in my mind, you have a breach of contract, you may have other unjust enrichment, may have other things, but I think the only way to really pursue this effectively is just to go ahead and file a complaint. It doesn't have to be a sophisticated, full, brief or anything like that, but in order to get someone's attention, sometimes that's what you have to do. But by code, I have to ask you for authority to do that.
So he has technically till end of day Friday to respond?
No, it was, we gave him until the 26th.
Oh,
Yesterday.
10 days, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I heard 2.
10 days.
Sorry, it's 10 days,
10
okay.
days.
I heard
10 days. And no response. No, hey, let's talk about this. Let's figure it out. That's nothing. Zero. So, my experience with this is you get their attention once you get into court, and then you have the ability to either fully litigate it or settle it.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully they want to settle it. I don't think we have a choice. I think we got to do it.
I mean, when you have a contractor that's doing this to you, I think the city needs to take
Yeah,
action.
yeah, we have to.
You can't
Yeah.
put up with this.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Do we need a motion?
I would appreciate it, yeah. Motion to authorize the city attorney to initiate a lawsuit against Repair Guy 1 LLC.
So moved.
Second.
City Clerk, can you please do a roll call?
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Frislavsky?
Yes.
Mayor Petrella?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Frislavsky? All right, Commissioner Grill?
Nothing except wishing everybody a happy and certainly a safe holiday weekend coming up. And look out for the fireworks at the east end of Corey. That'll be good.
Commissioner Grouse? Just on the 4th of July thing, so we have activities at Horan Park on July 2nd, that's Sunday, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., the Veterans of South Pinellas. There'll be pancake breakfast, there'll be live music, and some awards and a few other things. And then from 5 p.m. on, there will be also at Horan Park, July 2nd, food trucks, live music, more. And then fireworks will be at the end of East Corey, about 9 o'clock or so. So should be a good time for families and residents and everyone else. I'll be there in the morning, and hope to see you all there. All right, we're adjourned.